My goodness, the cat keeps getting at me here, Felix.
I got you, Father. I got you. Don't worry, you're good to go.
During discussion time, we'll play that sort of blooper clip. I'll explain it all at the question point. But I'm holding a document here that should terrify you. It's not classified. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a publicly available white paper. I'll give you the link for it from something called the Carbon Trust, working with Coca-Cola. What could go wrong, right? Detailing how they tested a system to track and limit what you're allowed to buy based on your carbon footprint. And here's the kicker. One participant, after their trial, said, "I love my cheese, but I suppose I'll have to cut back now." Why? Because the system told her she exceeded her carbon allowance. Welcome to the digital leash. The age of the cage, brothers and sisters. I'm Bishop Meikle, and today Felix and I are going to connect some very uncomfortable dots between this Coca-Cola document, the World Economic Gathering, Forum, the Institutional Catholic Church, the Synodal Church, and a prophetic novel from 1907 that predicted exactly this moment. And stick with us today, because this gets dark before it gets hopeful. I don't want you just to get the dark stuff. You gotta stick around for the hope and the crazy cat bloopers. But anyway, so let me tell you about this great piece of work here. What they're actually proposing. So, what did Coca-Cola and the Carbon Trust test? So right from their white paper titled Personal Carbon Allowances, a revised model to alleviate climate change. They recruited participants in Britain and gave them personal carbon budgets. Actually, I'm going to stick. Wrong one. Hang on. There we go. So, Felix, can you turn off the comments on the screen just for temporarily so that if people want to use that QR code, they can?
Yes, Father, absolutely.
See, Felix knows how to use this. It's just natural to him. So they recruited participants in Britain, and all you have to do is stick your phone at that image and the camera on the image, and it'll give you the link. So they recruited participants in Britain and gave them personal carbon budgets. Every purchase, food, transportation, heating was tracked and measured against their allowance. When people exceeded their budget, they received warnings and they were expected to modify their behavior. So here's some quotes from the participants. The trial made me more aware of my carbon footprint. I didn't realize how much my daily choices contributed. I mean, it sounds benign, right? Awareness is good. But listen to the next one. Next one, quote, I love my cheese, but I suppose I'll have to cut back now. Notice what happened? She didn't say I learned about environmental impact and decided to make a change. She said, I'll have to cut back. The system moved from information to compulsion, just like the Chinese social credit on steroids. And the document describes a 3-phase rollout. So phase 1 is voluntary awareness. Here's your carbon footprint. Isn't it interesting? Phase 2 is a soft coercion. Here's your allowance. We'll nudge you to comply through social pressure and incentives. And phase 3 is hard enforcement. You've exceeded your limit. Your purchase is denied. Now, they don't explicitly say phase 3 in the document because that would sound dystopian. But read between the lines, they talk about future integration with payment systems and automated tracking at point of sale. What does this mean? It means that your credit card, or more likely your central bank digital currency, won't process a transaction if you've exceeded your carbon allowance. I mean, just how special is that, Felix?
Oh, that's extraordinary. I mean,
yeah.
I wonder how much. I wonder what that will get you on the other side.
Well, I don't know. I mean, let me know in the comments if any of you guys know anything about the Chinese social credit system, because it's basically like if you behave, if you're a good little citizen, you do what the state government says, then you're allowed to go on the train and buy certain foods. And then if you don't, then your privileges are suspended just automatically. You try to use your card and your card won't work, which is one of the real dangers of the central bank digital currency idea. Is they sell it all as safety, it's against money laundering, all this. But the dark side of it is it's really going to, they can track everything and they can punish you without having to go to court or give you a ticket or whatever. You just can't buy certain stuff. So it's really, it's worse than most science fiction dystopias. So the thing is, some people would say, oh, you're overreacting. It's just a trial, right? And that's where I want everybody to pay attention, because every totalitarian system in history started with trials, pilot programs, voluntary participation. The document itself admits that public acceptance is the primary barrier to implementation. So public acceptance is the primary barrier. Not technology, not cost, public acceptance. So they're testing messaging. They're testing compliance mechanisms. They're testing how much surveillance people will tolerate if you wrap it up in environmental virtue, just like during the COVID tyranny. And Coca-Cola, one of the world's biggest corporations, is partnering with the Carbon Trust, which works directly with governments and international bodies like the UN. Are you sure this is just a trial that will go quietly away, or is this the blueprint for the cage they're building for all of us? So the white paper gets specific about implementation. So smart meters in every home tracking electricity and heating, GPS tracking of vehicle movement, a requirement to log all travel, this 15-minute city foolishness, point of sale integration, where every purchase is scanned for carbon content, dietary monitoring because your food choices have carbon impact, airline travel restrictions because flying is carbon intensive, penalties for non-compliance ranging from higher prices to outright purchase denial. Now, you notice something about that list, Felix? What would you say the thing that strikes you about the list with regard to, say, U.S. law, for example? What's the problem with all of this stuff if they try to impose it? What's the one thing protecting Felix and Bishop Meikle and all of you good folks from eating here?
Oh, sorry about that. I was muted.
Nah, sorry.
Well, yeah, no. We have our freedom to buy whatever we want. It's our money.
But what protection do we have now that some of the world doesn't have? There's one thing,
the Second Amendment,
that some of our viewers don't have.
The Second Amendment.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, exactly. but yeah, the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Like, the one thing, can you realize what a bullet we missed last election? Doesn't matter what your politics are. You can be a liberal or a lefty of goodwill. They're rare, but they exist. You could be one, right?
Right.
And you dodged a bullet with the current administration in the United States. Why? Because the only voice that is against the censorship and the in this kind of tyranny is a president that'll back the Constitution. In Canada, there are numerous constitutional protections. They have almost everything the U.S. has, except for the Second Amendment and free speech. Well, those are kind of important things to Americans. But most of the Constitution is very similar to the U.S. one. And the reason why I mention it is they froze bank accounts without constitutional authority. They presumed guilt. They clamped down on peaceful protest and the right of free assembly and the like. And nothing was done. And the people that were exposed when some of the independent journalists, the state media doesn't oppose them, but when the independent journalists, call attention to the abuses, the state police, the FBI equivalent, the RCMP, failed to investigate the Prime Minister of Canada for open crimes. And so, I mean, if this can happen in Canada, it can happen down here with the wrong president, because, you can have laws in the books, but if they're not enforced. And this is what we experience in the U.S. over immigration and some other issues, but it boils down to down here in the U.S., if the left doesn't like a law, then they freak out and they say it's unconstitutional to enforce it. And then the opposite's the case. If they're not in power, then they refuse to comply. They're not. It's rules for us, but not rules for them. And the same thing with this stupid carbon stuff. These carbon allowances don't apply to the rich and famous and the politicians. They're going to have their steak. They're going to have their steak every day if they want. They want everybody else to eat crickets. Literally, it sounds so surreal that it sounds like it's just made up or it's a crazy talk. But you guys look it up. There was a cricket plant. The largest cricket plant in North America was outside of London, Ontario. And it recently closed. It was built with, I think it was $13 million, which is not a huge amount for a factory, but it was built with Canadian taxpayer money, and it was intended for North American distribution. Their plan was they were going to make animal feed with it at first and then eventually introduce it as a protein additive in human food. There's all kinds of scientific problems with it. We're not going to get into it. I always have some smartass comment when I bring this up. John the Baptist ate locusts. Yeah, well, This isn't the point. The point is,
Right.
I'm preempting the jackassery, okay?
Yeah.
but the thing is, it's okay for me to be jackass. See the inconsistent rules? No, but anyway. No, but the thing is, this is totally unconstitutional, all the stuff. And it took a president and a number of senators, including, like, I think Lieberman was one, wasn't he, Felix? So you might know more than me. There was a Democratic senator that sort of was an independent de facto, if not in practice.
Yeah.
And he opposed any interference from the UN or the World Health Organization and the like. Again, I hope I'm not misrepresenting him, but if memory serves, there were a couple of people on the other side of the aisle that got it. And there's some Republicans that don't get it, right? So we've got Republican globalists. There's a number of Republicans. Republicans like to crap on Hunter Biden, but you know what? Some of their children were involved in the shadiness in the Ukraine and the stuff too, right? So if you do some digging, it's a rabbit hole I don't want to get into today. But the problem is in Canada, the UK, Germany, France, and the US, you have this phenomena which we nickname the Uniparty. And what that basically means is there are people that the World Economic Gathering Forum, they form these people before they're elected. They have this leadership program, and their networks help get sponsorship for their alumni to ascend the ranks of both politics and big corporation. So I'm totally against most left-leaning thinking. But the fact of the matter is that big corporations that de facto operate like nations, like left-wing nations, are as much of a threat as government overreach. And Coca-Cola is kind of stepping up and proving my point. One participant noted in the study, I found the constant tracking invasive at first, but you get used to it. Now, I get a story here. Maybe Felix has one too. But, I thought, oh, look, my car insurance company, said if I install this little widget in my car and I get an app, that I can get discounted insurance. Did you ever have anything like that, Felix?
No. I didn't spend too much time driving, though I am familiar with that concept and with that, I guess, that deal or, a product that they were offering.
So it seems like a good idea until you realize that they're collecting all this data. They know if you've sped, you've all this kind of stuff, and they can adjust your rates later. And the savings that we received were like $30 on insurance is pretty expensive. So it's like $30. Like, why am I welcoming Big Brother for a $30 discount? I don't think so. You take your $30 and take your widget back. So we tried it. It wasn't a success with us. I didn't enjoy it. But the thing is that they, and the same with in Canada. And again, I'm sorry to always go back to Canada, but I'm familiar with everything up there. And it really is a canary in the coal mine. They think like, leftists, right? So one of the things that they're doing up there is they're going to have what they call the online harms law. And there's a couple different things that they're basically going to censor independent news sources as misinformation. And they're also going to contact the ISP, so your company that provides your internet, and your ISP isn't even allowed to tell you you're under government scrutiny. And without a warrant, they propose to search your history, what you're watching. Oh no, you're watching Felix and Bishop Meikle. You must be a bad guy. You say mean things about Canadians. And, next thing you know, you're on a list, right? And before you think it can't happen in the US, remember, if you're a traditional Catholic, the previous regime, the Biden regime, had put you on a domestic T-word watch list. Why Antifa was literally burning down cities. And but those of us who are praying the rosary and going to Latin Mass, we were on a list. So it's a very disordered inversion, where Scripture says there will be a time when evil is called good and good is called evil. And we're living in those times. So the idea is that they have their plan. They want to normalize the surveillance. Like look at the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom has like more surveillance cameras per capita than I think any country in the world. Someone can fact check me on it, but it's pretty bad. And so they normalize it so everybody's used to it. They always sell it to you as safety, but coincidentally, there's never a camera on them when the certain types of newcomer are harassing the 14-year-old girls, there's no video to be found. But there's all kinds of video to be found if Granny makes a tweet on Facebook that offends the regime. So they normalize the surveillance. They make it feel responsible, and they make resistance feel selfish. Now, you might recall during the COVID tyranny that while certain governors of Michigan, for example, were telling their people they couldn't have a vegetable garden during the plague, and that you were selfish if you didn't voluntarily imprison yourself, they were flying to Florida, the free state of Florida, and enjoying a nice vacation while their people were locked up. And I don't think they've ever apologized for that. And, so this is the kind of stupid hypocrisy. Certain actors will come and lecture you about your carbon footprint, and, don't eat curry and Guinness because the resulting methane might offend the environment, but yet they'll get on a private jet and fly to Davos. So the double standard is just screaming, and we're all a little bit sick of it. The people that go on, you got to use these pronouns because it's tolerant. Yeah, they're not very tolerant of people like me and Felix, and probably you, the viewer. So I'm not very amused with it. And I want to be clear when I'm going crapping on all this environmental stuff that, let me be clear what I'm not arguing. So I'm not saying that environmental stewardship is wrong. It's definitely right. Genesis chapter 2, verse 15 tells us to till and keep the garden. We're supposed to care and store creation. I'm not saying that corporations shouldn't be accountable for pollution. I'm not against clean water and breathable air. I think this is all great. I'm not saying that we shouldn't waste, that we should waste resources or live gluttonously. I think we, again, all these things we should, right and left, liberal or conservative in religion, we should all agree on, a certain standard or a certain basis. What I am against is the grift. I'm against the tyranny. I'm against using the trappings of virtue to do some very evil things. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that use institutions like the government and the church and the media, and they put themselves in the role of the hero or the protector, but they are actually the wolves in sheep's clothing, preying on the ordinary people. And people don't, and the church, by and large, the big churches, they don't speak up. They're all scared. They all like their pension and their rectory and their cocktail parties with the rich and the famous and the politicians, but they won't stand with the ordinary person and speak against the creeping tyranny. Who speaks? I mean, it used to be the church spoke. Even if you didn't matter if you were a Catholic or not. You could be a blue collar Protestant in Northern Ireland, and the church still spoke for your workers' rights and dignity and the right to your own livelihood without government or corporate oppression. And this is not a leftist thing. Sometimes the people tool the church as some sort of the church in its proper expression is understood through Leo XIII. In the opening credits or the opening thing, we do have that buffer because when you go on live stream, Felix and I tried it the first time. It was awful. Right. There's a glitch. We were halfway through a paragraph, and then we realized, wait a second, the recording just started. So that's why there's that buffer. If you guys want to know why there's that countdown. The other thing is it's just kind of fun. Just I try to put a little graphic or something in most weeks that's just trying to make fun of whatever we're talking about. And it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that the solution being proposed, the centralized tracking and control of the individual consumption, it's not Christian nor compatible with human dignity. And in that credit roll, you'll see there's an image of this old guy, he's given the blessing. That's Leo XIII. He's one of the first instances. That was done in the late 1800s. It's one of the first instances of film. So that's kind of neat. And you can see the real clip or the full clip. Just type Leo XIII in the YouTube and say original film, and you can see the actual recording. And it's pretty impressive that we have that piece of history. And he was really the greatest of all Catholic popes, in my opinion. I know I'm going to get some. If you disagree with me or you agree with me, stick it in the comments who you think your favorite pope is. But for me, Leo XIII beats a lot of these guys. They say they're saints. John the 23rd and Paul VI don't have a candle to Leo XIII. And there are other great popes. But I like Leo because Leo's truth, it was very evident that it applied to Protestants as well as Catholics. He spoke about human dignity in a properly ordered way that was still under the first commandment. And that's totally lost. Modern Christians treat the church like it's a non-governmental organization, that it's just another branch of the UN, that it's all about recycling and being nice to the migrant. That's not Christianity. I mean, I'm not saying you can't recycle and be nice to people. You should be, but That's not the primary mission. That's at best a tertiary mission. So, there's a massive difference between we should be good stewards and we need technocrats monitoring your cheese consumption. Wouldn't you say, Felix? Do you want your cheese consumption monitored, brother? Do you like cheese?
I love cheese, and it's nobody's business how much I pig out on cheese. It's
what's your
between me and
favorite?
the Lord. Oh Lord, I would have to go with Munster, maybe Brie.
Well,
those two are pretty outstanding. What about you?
I like those two, and I like it's funny because it's a French cheese, but I was introduced to it at a German restaurant, Camembert as an appetizer, so that's very nice, and I like those two. I like most kinds. I don't like the really nasty smelling stuff. Like there's some sort of connoisseur cheese that are just nasty. They taste good, but they're no, I'm not into that. But anything that's mild, I don't like harsh. Provolone. Some of you guys, sorry, talk about a rabbit hole, but provolone is one of those cheeses. Depending on the type, it can be very mild or very nasty. And so
provolone rocks. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean, we might be on another idea for podcast, but I guess
the cheeses of Felix and Bishop.
The cheese cast.
Here's the problem. We could rate them with our carbon allotments and stuff. We could say whether Coca-Cola wants us to eat that cheese or not. It'd be wonderful.
We could call it the Cheese Cutters Podcast.
Yeah. Wah. There's always one on a podcast. But anyway, okay. So Leo XIII, the Christian in economics. So I love Leo so much. And if you've been following this channel, I reference Leo always. Leo the 13th, not the 14th, right? So and speaking of which, you can get more of my, you can check this little QR code out too if you're of interest. That I put articles on there about stuff that may not necessarily be of interest to video folks, but if you need more Bishop Meikle in your life, and I'm not sure you do, but if you do, there is Bishop Meikle's Substack. I've got some great articles. They're all written, but you know what isn't done? Like there's about 30 of them on there now, but I've got some coming out on comparing early Judaism with the different forms of Christianity, earlier and late Judaism. And I got quite feisty on Twitter on the subject today, so you can check out the Twitter too if you'd like. But but it's good. It's good to agree to disagree. And I'll tell you what's holding it up. I told everybody I was going to have it launched Monday, but it's the footnotes. So when you do the footnotes, like I'm one of these guys, I read a lot of stuff, and then I don't remember where I read it. I know it's not from me.
It's a curse.
I write this stuff, and then I've got to go and I've got to find it. So I try to get Grok to help me. That doesn't always work, and then then I'm scared. Like if you use AI, you never know whether it's right? Like I could be, what if I refers to this? Well, Meikle, that was about Barney the dinosaur. That wasn't about, So then you look like an idiot. So you got, but by the same token, like, to do those footnotes properly in the old days, I remember my old professor, Father Cuschieri, he'd be in a library for hours and hours and hours, and he would check other people's references, and he was also very careful about his own. And he used to write textbooks. None of them were commercially successful because they were all footnotes. And I'd say, Father Andy, you got like one paragraph and the rest of the page is footnotes. And he told me, he says, this is why I do it. He says, a lot of these modern theological and canon law books, he says, they're look, he says, and he shows me. And he was showing, and he says, he shows me the footnote, and it quoted some Latin, and then he shows the actual source, and they weren't the same thing at all. And so he says there's a lot of dishonesty. So this is why, he checks the footnotes. And I try as best as possible to, give that to you guys, that when I write these articles, I try to back everything up. And I try to tell you when it's just my opinion versus the church's teaching, because that's important for you to know too. But anyway, back to Leo, the 13th. His encyclical Rerum Novarum, 1891. It's important, even if you're a Protestant. This is important stuff, because it's about the dignity of the Christian worker. And so I'm deliberately using Leo the 13th and the Christian economics, not just saying specifically Catholic, because it's all based on the natural law and the scripture, which Protestants, Catholics should be 100% in agreement with. And so he laid out the principles for economic justice that directly contradict what I was telling you in this white paper, this Coca-Cola world. And the sad part of it is modern Vatican's behind all this crap, hook, line, and sinker. They're going on about recycling and migration, but they want all the existing Christian civilization to be destroyed, to be dismantled. And they claim they don't, but their policies say otherwise. They're appointments. You can tell a president or a pope, the quality of them, by who they appoint into key roles. So again, do your homework and you'll probably end up like me and Felix. But anyway, and I'm not sure you'll thank us for that, but there you go. So Leo XIII's framework was subsidiarity, that decisions should be made at the most local level, competent to make them, the individual and the family, and then the community, and then higher authorities only when necessary. I was going to say, Felix, how do we get us both back up here? Here we go. There.
Okay, yeah, there we are.
I don't think you guys need my Substack all day. Second, private property as a natural right. It's not absolute. In other words, there are legitimate reasons why someone might be able, like the government might have to buy your backyard, highways coming through or something like that, or an easement. So it's not an absolute right, but it is a foundational right, meaning it can't be taken lightly. Which, by the way, some weird stuff's going on in Canada too. The government just decided to give a whole bunch of people subdivisions to some native groups. It's like, okay, they received these letters, and oh, by the way, you may have some problem selling your property because your title is now under dispute, or it's now belongs to these First Nations. Well, yeah, I'm sorry. If you're going to pull that crap, then the government better buy the houses from the people that live there. This is totally unacceptable. And I know that I have First Nation blood in me, but my cousin has a card. I never got certified. Certainly got more native blood in me than Elizabeth Warren. But I will say this, I would imagine that there are plenty of Christian natives that would be horrified at that decision as much as the people that are living there, because it looks bad on them too, right? They've received a lot of injustice, but they've also received a lot of government benefit. So, and the same thing, they're blocking pipelines and stuff for Alberta. So it's like, well, where do you think your money for all your benefits come from? And but it's messed up because there's some First Nations that they really take care of their people, and then there's some that the chiefs live like millionaires and the people don't have clean water. So that's a mess. But again, another rabbit hole. So so the thing is that so property rights are important. You have the right to the fruit of your labor and the ability to provide for your family without asking permission from distant bureaucrats and without worrying about the government giving away your land without legitimate authority. So then there's the dignity of the person. So economic systems must serve human flourishing. It can't reduce humans to inputs in a managed system. They're treating everybody like gerbils with a chip implanted in them. And then if you look at the carbon allowances through this lens, subsidiarity is violated. So that principle is violated. The distant technocrats in Geneva or Brussels would determine how much cheese you can buy in your own home. Is my beer organic friendly or not? And then property rights are undermined. Your property is no longer fully yours. Your purchasers require approval from the system. Contrast that with someone like Governor DeSantis, who wants to get rid of property tax so that you actually own your own home. Isn't that amazing, Felix?
I think that's wonderful. We definitely need more rules like that. It's funny how anti-tax I've become in my age, but here we are.
I don't think anybody minds paying for the roads and the embassy system and the military and stuff. We all understand that a certain amount of taxation is just. But the point of the matter is that when it's just going to fund the politicians' friends, that's not just. So we need a little more accountability, a little more transparency. Part of the problem is that above a certain number, people don't really get their minds around what this stuff costs. Like, so, I think I told you the story before. I used to be on faculty for the officer candidate school, and when we made exercises for the candidates, one of the numbers, and I don't even know if this is true. You guys can fact check me as far as whether it's scientifically accurate or not, but this is what I was told. Okay, so I was told that 37 feet is the magic number that triggers fear of heights. So one of the things you do in military basic training is you want to trigger fear in all the different areas that people are afraid of. So So, maybe I'm not afraid of heights, but maybe Felix is, or maybe Felix likes water, but I'm scared of it. Or, so the military puts all of you into your fear factor so they can see how you operate under stress and teach you that, basically you can overcome these fears and you have your team behind you and, all those good things. So, but they really use that real lesson, so 37 feet is the magic number. So it doesn't matter whether your obstacle's 40 feet or 60 feet, as long as it triggers the fear. Right. So Here's the problem with money. Most people cannot properly conceive of values more than $30,000. So we know we have a pretty good grasp of 30,000. Now, most of us have, retirement plans or something in excess of that, but we don't really have a clear appreciation of it above those amounts. And you've got these politicians making billion-dollar decisions, and a lot of them aren't even numerate. They wouldn't pass. We had Dr. Thomas Sowell, and he gave them a basic economics test that he'd expect a grade 12 student to have. Most of our politicians would fail. So we have people that are economically innumerate making decisions, spending your money and my money and everything else. Basically, this is not an acceptable situation. So, but again, another rabbit hole for another day. So the thing is that, our dignity is destroyed with this white paper, that you're reduced to a carbon unit. You're managed like livestock for efficiency. And Leo XIII saw this coming. In 1901, he wrote something called Graves de Communui Rei. He warned against the systems that promise economic security through the surrender of personal liberty. So I'm going to read this again because this is like pow, like this is prophetic. Okay. 1901. He warned against systems that promise economic security through surrender of personal liberty. Now, does that sound like Francis to you? Does that sound like Leo XIV? No. It sounds like Al Gore, that he'd want you to surrender personal liberty for your economic security. And it's all too familiar. So there's some Catholic thinkers that I want to introduce you to: Chesterton, Belloc, and G.K. Chesterton and Hilaire Belloc. They wrote in the early 20th century, and they predicted exactly this trajectory. So there's a 1912 book by Belloc that I recommend you read. It's called The Servile State. And he argued that modern capitalism and socialism, despite appearing opposed, would converge towards the same end, a society where many are controlled by the few under the guise of caring for their needs. Okay, I'm going to repeat this. A society where many are controlled by the few under the guise of caring for their needs. If you're Canadian and watching, I apologize in advance. I mean no direct offense. But that is a country composed of a people that by and large are willing, they just want to be taken care of. They want the government to take care of it all. Now, there are exceptions, but they prove the rule. And the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan are not culturally like that. But the majority of the country it's all pensionable time, man. Just government will take care of me. Oh, it's okay that they arrested those protesters and froze their bank accounts. They were making the government uncomfortable. Meanwhile, there's all kinds of protests in Montreal that are violent for certain Middle Eastern countries, and no one will touch them. There's people making videos outside of Toronto with automatic weapons that Canadians aren't allowed to own, but because they're of the privileged ethnicity and origin, they're not going to be arrested. But if Felix or I did this in Canada, we'd be in trouble. And that brings me to another rabbit hole called anarcho-tyranny. So if you don't know that term, I want you to Google it. Anarcho, A-N-A-R-C-O, tyranny, and learn all about it. It's important that you know. So Hilaire Belloc prophesies that the future will see a society where men work for large organizations that meet their material needs, but they will not be free. They will be comfortable slaves, and the chains will be economic rather than legal. If at all this is possible in your life, you should try to be self-employed. It entails more risk, but it also entails more freedom. If you're self-employed, no one can tell you about pronoun use. No one can tell you whether you can pack heat at work, right? There's a whole bunch of things that you give up when you're employed by a large organization. It has its place, but like I say, if you are in a large organization, try to retire early and level up into self-employment. And again, once you're past the initial adjustment and freak out that, oh my goodness, if I don't work, I don't eat, it's beneficial for a lot of people. So the thing is, carbon allowances are the perfection of this system that Belloc warned us against. You'll have food, shelter, heating, but only what the system allows. You'll work and consume, but only within the prescribed boundaries. You'll be managed for your own good and for the planet. Oh, everything they'll tell you what to do, it's for the planet. Think of the children that they don't even have. But they're going to tell you and your children about the planet. Give me a bleeping break, Mr. Flying on a private jet to Davos. Resistance will be labeled selfish, antisocial, and dangerous. It's kind of like when Leo goes on about migration, but he doesn't take any migrants in his own walled land himself. All those empty rooms and things that are going on. Why aren't they all filled with migrants? Since, he's telling us to do it. So walk your talk or shut the up.
Shut the front door.
Yeah, exactly. So Chesterton added the cultural dimension. He said that people would accept servitude if you made it feel virtuous. Oh my goodness. Doesn't this sound like today? Felix, doesn't this sound like Rush Limbaugh or Tucker Carlson is talking about this stuff? So this is like early 20th century Catholic thought that people would accept servitude if you made it feel virtuous. Make them think that they're saving the world by surrendering freedom, and they'll police each other and rat on each other and turn one another in with snitch lines, just like East Germany and their Stasi. And that's what Michigan did. That's what a lot of blue states did. And this stuff has been trimmed, but people are so ignorant of history. They're too busy teaching you how many genders and pronouns there are. They don't actually teach you any history. So, and how many people even know what's in the Constitution, what's the rights are? It's a small percentage. And I have a feeling that the viewers that would be attracted to a show like this actually know a lot more than the common person. But there's, you have neighbors, you have family members. They know nothing. They'll willingly give their neck over to the collar and be leashed so they can be called virtuous by Leonardo DiCaprio or Leo XIV. Big bleeping deal what he thinks. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the baptized. He doesn't care about the first commandment. He doesn't care about the restoration and the advancement of the church. He doesn't care about evangelization. He has Muslim chapels at St. Peter's. What is going on? Right? So I'm just tired of the BS. I don't mind if you disagree with me. I don't like the fraud. I don't like the lies. And I get really irritated at it. And this is just it. If you want this big Borg, this big government Borg, great. You know what? There's lots of people in urban California that love that stuff. Great. You know what? You guys can live in the Borg cube. Leave the rest of us alone. And at your peril, heaven help you. You try to mess with the people that know what God wants and aren't going to put up with this stupidity. So the thing is that Chesterton warned that the modern world is full of the old Christian virtues gone mad. That justice gone mad becomes cruelty. Mercy gone mad becomes cowardness. And environmentalism gone mad becomes tyranny. Now, I added the last part, but it's in the spirit of his work. Now, I'm going to talk about Professor Plinio. I'm going to pronounce his last name wrong. Corrêa de Oliveira and the Four Revolutions. So Professor Plinio was a Brazilian Catholic intellectual who wrote a book in 1959 called Revolution and Counter-Revolution. And he argued that the Western civilization has been undergoing 4 successive revolutions, each one taking us further from the Christian order. So the first revolution was the Protestant Revolution, the Reformation, as many call it. And it broke the unity of Christendom. It elevated the individual interpretation over the church authority and fragmented religious truth. The second revolution, he says, was the French Revolution. It applied that principle to politics. It overthrown hierarchy and throned equality as an absolute value, as the left does today, and guillotined anyone who disagreed, as the left does today. They literally wheel out guillotines in Portland, Felix. So,
wow.
Yeah. So third revolution, communist revolution. So then it takes it to economics. It collectivizes property, subordinates the individual to the state planning, creates the surveillance states. In the church context, it turns everything synodal. And then there's the fourth revolution, cultural and ecological revolution. This is where we are now. The target is human nature. So the tools are technology, constant surveillance. Your phone probably listens to you all the time. We tried some experiments at home. Maybe some of you tried it too. Like, just talk about window frames like for a day around your phone and see if you start getting ads for them. It's kind of weird. There's technology, there's constant surveillance. A lot of it is done legally. You accidentally give permission when you agree to terms of these little apps. Oh, I want to play Pac-Man on my phone. And then you just click, of course, I agree to the terms. And meanwhile, it says, yeah, we can turn on your microphone. And the AI can sort out, it can understand speech, and it can sort out interesting things, right? So it's not like someone's listening to your words, but the computer can all go into a recorded database, and then the computer can data mine it. Environmentalism, control through virtue. So they create this false religion as people have abandoned the true religions, the true religion, and traditional religions that are non-Christian. The replacement is environmentalism. And the reason being is, from the Christian perspective, it's only the Christian religion that's true. But anthropologically, you can see what they do. They want to destroy all individual religions so that you can become the religion of the coexist stick, or essentially one global Borg. And they'll base it on the environment and on things like kindness and tolerance, but defined as they see it. And then there's globalism. So basically, hey, if they control the planet, if they control the World Health Organization, if they can get a global currency, if they can get, all this stuff will mean the only thing protecting us from this tyranny is the fact that we have a strong nation state. So our friends to the north in Canada, they just self-describe as post-national. So that's what Trudeau has described it as. And if you look at Prime Minister Carney and his background, he has serious credentials in this line. He is a director of the World Economic Gathering. He's not a puppet like Trudeau. He's actually a leader. And people will look at his stuff and they say, wow, he's crazy prime minister. Why would he sell Canada out? I said to a Canadian who was mad at me making fun of Carney, he was, he hates President Trump and he's going on. And I just said, you know what Carney and Trump share in common? Basically, what do you know about politics, priest? Well, I'll tell you, you know what? You guys, if you know, put in the chat or the comments, what do President Trump and Prime Minister Carney have in common in terms of their investments?
Ooh.
You want to guess, Felix? So what would, I'll give you a hint. Both President Trump and Prime Minister Carney have 90% of their investments in what country?
America.
Right. So if you're Prime Minister of Canada, and in his case, it's actually 91% because he had disclosed his investments, which is weird because his treasury secretary, his industry, is it industry or treasury? He's got a senior advisor that has not disclosed. And the reason why you have to disclose them is, of course, when they make all these big deals, there's conflicts of interest. And if your leader has his primary residence in New York and 90% of his investments in the United States, that's, what we call not having skin in the game. So this is why I'm saying I get angry, right? I don't get angry at differences of opinion. There's the occasional leftist that watches here, and we can agree to disagree. I'm not a leftist. I like to describe myself as just non-left versus right or something other label, because I don't really fit into right either, because I'm more Leo the 13th, and that's whose party I'd belong to if he had one, the Cristero party or the Leo the 13th party. But I'm definitely non-left. I'm definitely an enemy of the left, right? I'm not an enemy of all leftists, because actually I treasure an honest leftist or person that leans left. I don't know what the modern word leftist can be good, but someone who leans left, who is an honest person of goodwill. We can agree to disagree. I value those friendships so much, because you don't want to drink your own bathwater, and it's nice to have someone that you can respect that disagrees with you respectfully, and vice versa. Because again, we don't want to drink our own bathwater, no matter what religion or political persuasion we have. But my real concern is that, Prime Minister Carter, I would never have the audacity of trying to lead a country I didn't invest in. That to me is just a square circle that's too big. And it's kind of like these people that say they're Catholic, even priests and bishops. They say they're Catholic, but they don't believe in any of it. But they'll take the roles, they'll take the positions, they'll take the diocese, they'll take the cardinal's position, but they don't believe in any of it at all. They can't even follow their 1990s catechism. Those are the people I get angry at, not the people that I just disagree with. So the final thing, so globalism, there's no escape from globalism. The fourth revolution also includes, this is going to be really interesting for some of you, Gnosticism. So the rejection of created order and the embrace of transformation. And I would direct those of you who are Catholic, I direct you to research just a little bit, like a couple paragraph article on Teilhard de Chardin. And if you're Protestant, look up Alfred North Whitehead. All right, because there are other people that share these schools of thought, but these two sort of capture from sort of a theological frame what's happening in the secular world as well. So carbon allowances are a fourth revolution tool. They combine third revolution collectivism, the central planning of resources, second revolution equality obsession, everyone gets the same allowance, first revolution fragmentation, there's no unified truth about human flourishing. And they add something new, making you complicit in your own enslavement by convincing you it's for a higher cause. So that brings me to someone from outside the Catholic tradition, because his analysis is amazing and devastating. Dr. Thomas Sowell, who's an economist and social theorist, wrote The Vision of the Anointed in 1995. This is very prophetic. This is 1995, dissecting how intellectual elites justify controlling ordinary people's lives. Sowell's pattern is that the anointed identify a crisis, climate change, inequality, public health. They propose a solution like carbon allowances, wealth redistribution, and lockdowns. They dismiss objections as ignorance or malice. You're a denier, you're selfish, you're anti-science. They never measure results or cherry-pick data to claim success. And when it fails, they demand more power. The solution didn't work because it wasn't implemented fully enough. Doesn't that sound familiar, Felix?
Oh yeah.
We haven't tried socialism properly yet.
That's the only reason it's failed, because it's never really been implemented. I hope you guys knew that.
Absolutely.
I'm kidding, by the way.
No, yeah. So Sowell's key insight is that the anointed are not accountable for the consequences of their policies. They design systems from comfortable positions and impose them on others and never experience the cost. Tell me in the chat or the comments if you agree or you've seen this. Doesn't it strike you as odd that in blue cities in the United States, that the people would always vote for the same party that keeps them in poverty? Like, it's kind of bizarre. You'd think common sense wise that they'd vote for this party because they say that, oh, we're going to help the poor. And then when they don't help the poor, they'd vote for the other. But there's this weird American thing that for years, I think we've broken it. I hope it's been broken. For years, a certain group of people will keep voting for the failures, voting for the grifters. And the thing is that these people never have to experience the consequences of the policies they enact. Like, for example, Speaker Pelosi has bought a $30 million mansion in Florida. She is not going to retire in the district that she serves, and she won't pay state income tax if she moves to Florida. And I would like, and if some of you know Governor DeSantis, you should suggest this. Say that crazy Meikle gave us this idea. He thinks you should pass a law, let them take it to court. It'll be a real hoot. We'll probably lose, but it's the principle of the thing. Pass a law that says if a politician leaves a high tax state, federal politician leaves a high tax state to retire in a no tax state, they should pay the income tax that they would have had to pay in their home state. Does that sound fair, Felix?
That sounds above and beyond fair. That sounds late. Something should have implemented in poverty, years ago.
They should have to live in the communities that they are responsible for having taken care of. They should have skin in the game. Their kids should go to school with the kids in that community. They're not off to Harvard and Yale. No, you know what? You're a politician's kid. The family takes one for the team. You go with the average person in that district. And especially if you're lefty, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was going to say, yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit too. It's just, it's the same thing. It's like when they put these COVID lockdowns, they should have been forced to lock down just
Right.
the same, instead of Gavin Newsom and AOC coming
Felix, they
to live
reelected
it up
Whitmer.
in Miami.
They reelected Whitmer knowing that she faked the kidnapping thing, right? And
Yeah.
they reelected her knowing that she partied down here in Florida while everybody was else locked up. They still reelected her.
I don't know whether to lose faith in the electives, in the election system, or in the people of Michigan. You know, and I'm podcasting.
It's all the media manipulation, right? He who controls the flow of information controls the democracy.
Yeah, no, correct. And again, you know, and I'm in a one of my other podcasts. This was the comedy pop culture podcast that I'm doing. The guys, most of the people there are from Michigan, and so I have to hear it on their end because they're not happy. You know, they weren't happy with Whitmer and all that. And
you know what they should do as a joke? So, you know, in Eastern Oregon, a lot of people, so some of you guys know this, Eastern Oregon and Eastern Washington State actually are full of conservatives, right? Like if you look at a map, Benny Johnson has one in this background, 90% of the counties went red last election. And the eastern portion of Washington State and Oregon want to join what they call Greater Idaho. Well, wouldn't it be funny if you had, there's a whole bunch of traditional Catholics in Michigan. And wouldn't it be funny if you had got a couple counties, you know, Dearborn wants to be like little, whatever a stand. Wouldn't it be something if you had a bunch of counties say, we want to join Florida? I mean, obviously it's ridiculous, but it's just making a point. Like they obviously can't geographically join Florida. But man, oh man, like Florida is just kicking butt. They're fixing insurance, the car insurance. They're fixing the property tax for primary residents. They seem to be doing everything they can for the people. And, you know, it's kind of neat. I fluked out Florida. I was in Oregon and I was asked by my archbishop to move down here. And I never thought I'd like it. Now I don't want to leave. So it's good.
Yeah, same here. That's not true. I've always wanted to live here as a kid. And, you know,
you used to vacation down here as a kid?
Yeah, because, you know, I had my grandfather, he lived in Miami, so I would come visit him like, you know, every year or so. And I always loved it here, you know, so when I finally, I don't know, something happened. I had a bad experience in New Jersey, the last of many. I was like, you know what? Enough's enough. I got on a bus with, I know this almost sounds like I came from, went to Ellis Island, but with the money in my pocket, which was about like of $600 or so, give or take. And on the bus ride to Miami, I ended up securing a week by week room and all this, like my living condition, everything. I set it up on the bus right down there because I was so fed up with Jersey. But best decision I ever made in my life.
I'm so glad it worked out.
Oh yeah, you know, now I get to hang out with Father Miko.
Talk about the rabbit hole again. I apologize, guys. I'm going to eventually make these also into like edited podcasts that are consistent length and they don't have the rabbit holes, but some of you enjoy the rabbit hole, so we'll just say it. But my first introduction to Florida. So in Oregon, this is pre-Cape Brown, Oregon. I didn't have anything weird there at all. It was actually very pleasant, very nice. I come to Florida my first week. What do I see? A big guy with like an afro, like it was a white guy with a big afro in a tutu at the Publix, at the grocery store. And I thought, well, that's something I haven't even seen in Oregon. And then that same week, someone just sort of dropped trow and had a dump in front of the bank.
No.
And I was like, I thought I'd hate this place. I've never seen anything weird like that again. So, but isn't it weird? Like what, I guess, I don't know, it was just coincidence or maybe the devil trying to discourage me, but it was just really weird. Like here I am my first week and it was all that.
But ever since I have back
to back crazy. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, fortunately it was, we're much better now. Now, so the thing is, like Soul again says, the anointed are not accountable for consequence of their policies. Now, when your carbon allowance prevents you from buying cheese, Felix, the technocrat who designed the system is not going without. This is my main problem, right? All these guys say, "Oh, we got to have government run everything." Listen, they shouldn't be running anything because when they do, they grift and things stop working. And everything is run inefficiently, And what you end up with is that, the haves, they'll still have their vacations. They'll still have their private islands. They'll still have their private jets. When you can't afford to heat your home or air condition your home because energy prices are managed for carbon reduction, when you have rolling brownouts like they do in Europe, Felix, they're going to in Canada soon, and I think they already have them in California, when the World Economic Gathering attendee can fly private to Davos, he isn't without heat or air conditioning. So Sol says this is pretty cool. It's hard to imagine a more stupid or dangerous way of making decisions than putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. Isn't that something?
Yeah,
so
and it's so poignant. Yeah, that makes so true.
It is. All right, hang on, Felix. What are we doing here? Hang on, wait for it. Nope. Wait for it. I'm trying to. Okay, here we go.
Are you professional or not?
No, not professional at all. So earlier I tried to record some of the pre-show because the idea is that if I do the first part partially recorded, I can put up nice graphics and show you pictures and stuff, and that's what I was trying to do. And my cat, I always use him as the ending credit kind of thing. He just decided to photobomb me, and so I'm just going to let him play in the background. So that was my earlier attempt, and I'm like, really, cat? Like, I'm trying to look over him. But anyway, I just thought you get a kick in it. So, okay, let's talk about the Vatican and World Economic Gathering convergence. And now we get to the part that will upset some of you. All right. But facts are facts. So even the cat thinks so. The institutional Catholic Church, Synodal Church, particularly under Pope Francis and Leo XIV, has formed explicit partnerships with the very organizations pushing these carbon allowances and global technocratic control. And, I go on about Lord of the World all the time. We're going to come to it a little later, but it really gives you some insight to what's going on. So here's the documented facts. There's a Vatican UN partnerships. There's multiple joint declarations on sustainable development goals, including carbon reduction targets that require behavioral modification at scale. There's Vatican World Economic Gathering collaboration. The Vatican sent a high-level delegation to Davos. Cardinal Peter Turkson. Those of you who are Catholic and traditional Catholic know who that turkey is. He's very aptly named. He's Turkson, the son of Turkey, I guess. But anyway, former head of Vatican's Justice and Peace Office, explicitly endorsed the World Economic Gathering's Great Reset. You'll own nothing and be happy. These guys want everybody part of the big Borg. Laudato Si implementation. Pardon me while I barf.
Right.
Francis's environmental encyclical called for a new global political authority, the Borg, to manage environmental concerns, effectively arguing for a supranational governance. Right? The U.S. is opposed. There's a reason why they shut off the bank machines at the Vatican when Benedict XVI was Pope. And when he resigned, all of a sudden, miraculously, they all got turned on again. You guys look this up. It's not conspiracy theory. It's a public record. The Abu Dhabi document, 2019, Francis signed a joint declaration with Islamic leaders stating that the religious diversity is willed by God, which to Catholics is a heresy. He sets up a framework for a one-world religious harmony under secular management. We put up a graphic last week. Felix had one of the Abrahamic temples. So anyway. Synod and synodality. The current Vatican emphasis on listening and accompaniment consistently aligns with progressive political agendas, leftist, communist, socialist political agendas, globalist, advocating open borders, misrepresenting scripture, like the flight to Egypt of our Blessed Mother and our Lord and St. Joseph to Egypt, represented as a story of migration, illegal immigration. That's not true. That'd be like me going to Georgia and saying, oh, I need asylum here, Felix. I'm in Georgia. Egypt was a province of the Roman Empire, just like Israel was. So,
right.
It's just dishonest aspects of history that get me really growly. So the current Vatican emphasis is consistently contradicts traditional Catholic moral teaching. They're more concerned about what Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney think of them, right? They can get a meeting
That's
with the
right.
Vatican, but forget any real traditional that isn't somehow complicit. So, and here's where I part ways with some critics. I don't think Leo XIV or Francis before him woke up one morning and decided to betray our Lord, right? I think they made a catastrophic error. I think that they've allowed the world to de-evangelize them. I don't think that they intend to be evil, but I could be wrong. I mean, someone like a Cardinal Bernardine certainly seemed to be evil. Cardinal Carrick certainly seemed to be evil. So evil people exist in the church. However, I would like to think Leo and Francis, that they're just ignorant, that they're just maybe full of pride, thinking that these globalist elites somehow have it right, but that they really do care about the people. But that's not the effect, right? So they're confused. The gospel, they've confused gospel mercy with political humanitarian action, care for the poor with advocating for global wealth redistribution. They don't redistribute their own wealth, but they're happy to redistribute yours. Stewardship of creation with the supporting technocratic environmental control and the surveillance state. Religious dialogue with religious indifferentism. So Francis famously said, don't proselytize. Like, heaven forbid you convert a Muslim or Lutheran to Catholicism or a Muslim to Christianity. He didn't want that. So you got to say, well, then what do you believe? Right? Like, I respect a Lutheran who says, I'm Lutheran because I think it's more Christian. And I mean, I disagree with them, right? Because I'm Catholic. But here's the thing, is that at least I can agree to disagree. I can be friends with that Lutheran because we're going to learn more about what each other thinks. And we're going to both hopefully grow in understanding together, even though we're going to agree to disagree on items of doctrine. But when you have someone like Francis just says, oh, well, stay Lutheran or whatever, you don't even believe in your own faith enough to evangelize to it. I don't know. I just think you should find another job, like, be a squeegee kid or sell coffee or do something. But don't pretend you're something you're not. Don't pretend you're a teacher of a faith you don't even believe in. And that's the problem with modern Rome. The problem with modern Rome, every once in a while I get some smart ass that calls me a Protestant because I don't believe in Francis and I don't believe in Leo XIV. And I have to say to them, you don't understand what a Protestant is at all. What is a Protestant? Someone who protests the old faith, right? It wasn't that they protest the Pope. They protest the Pope because they didn't believe in the faith the Pope held at the time. It wasn't like, oh, well, if the Pope was Lutheran, we're going to protest the Pope. It's like, no. They were against the faith. And the problem with big church Christianity these days is that they've forgotten their path. Like, it doesn't align with even the 1990s catechism, let alone the pre-1960 catechism. So again, you and I could agree to disagree on this, and we can have a respectful argument on it. And that hopefully would be spiritually and intellectually beneficial to strengthen both of our arguments, right? Like, God sorted out because he's the master. He's the holder of the truth. But that's not what they're doing, right? They're basically, I don't know, they're selling us out. It's a real heartbreak. So care for the poor with advocating for global wealth redistribution. I mean, they don't care for the poor. They want to take the air conditioners away. They want to take away their ability to ever own their own automobile and their own home. They want to keep the poor enslaved. All the while, they want all of us poor. Whereas a good Christian person would want to raise everybody up to at least like what you call a lower middle class. At least everybody should be able to form, not by government dictate, but we should all be able to own a home, right? Like, if you're 25 on one income, you should be able to own a home
with a milk route. You should be able to own some. Yeah, even with the right. That's what it was in the 50s. You can have a milk route, and and afford a home for you and your family.
Now in Canada, they're talking about making these modular homes. They're basically sea containers and just putting everybody in them, and it's like, and it'll all be government owned, like the Borg. No, you should be able to own your own home. Simple as, and it should be able to be done on one average salary. And you don't fix these problems with messing with minimum wage and all this kind of crap. You create an environment where people can build wealth ethically and in line with Leo XIII. And if you want, again, he's a secular guy, but if you haven't already, read Thomas Sowell. He's an ex-lefty. He's an economist, PhD economist at Stanford now. He's been all over. at all the big universities. The man is truly he's really the only public figure that I really want to meet that I haven't already. And he's like at 94 or something. I don't imagine I'm ever going to get to meet him, but I would love to meet him. He's just amazing. But anyway, I digress. So the thing is that so this Laodicea and this new political authority we mentioned Abu Dhabi. Okay, the category error is, again, stewardship of creation was supporting this technocratic environmental control, and religious dialogue and religious indifferentism, the coexist sticker. And it's the same mistake liberal Protestants made 100 years ago, thinking that Christianity's primary mission is building the kingdom of God on earth through social programs rather than getting souls to heaven. And when the institutional church aligns with the UN or World Economic Forum agendas, it provides moral cover for systems like carbon allowances. And instead of saying this violates human dignity and subsidiarity, the church says we must care for the creation and the poor. But as I said, they do neither. And instead of warning about the totalitarian drift, the church often offers theological language that makes it seem righteous. So here's the thing. It's devastating because millions of Catholics will think if Leo supports this, it must be compatible with the faith. But here's the reality. The church's job is making saints. It's not managing global carbon credits. And we forget our actual mission. We become useful idiots for agendas that have nothing to do with getting souls to heaven. So I'm going to now tell you a little bit about Professor Plinio's view. And he saw that revolutions don't happen all at once. They happen in concentric circles moving outward from their compromised center. So right now, he would say the center circle is intellectuals and elites who consciously embrace this revolution. The second circle is the useful idiots who sincerely believe they're doing good while implementing the revolution. The third circle are the masses who comply simply because everyone else is, and resistance becomes futile. I believe that Leo XIV and many bishops are in the second circle. They generally think that serving our Lord by partnering with the World Economic Gathering on environmental action, but they don't see how they're providing theological cover for a system that will enslave ordinary Christians. But the intent doesn't change the consequence, folks. Our Lord said to judge the false teacher by the fruit. The digital leash doesn't become less oppressive because Leo blessed it with good intention. What say you, Felix?
I think I agree. I can't even add to that.
Do we have any comments? We can break for those, and we'll finish up. We have time with. I got some more stuff here.
We started a cheese war.
Oh, okay. Okay, cheese war. So we're going to talk about after this Lord of the World, and then the antidote. So I give you some hope. So let's hear about some of the comments. And thank you guys for being patient getting through all this. But there's a lot of volume, but it's kind of a big issue.
So big hello to Norm. He says, thank you for another great important topic. Father Haygood is in the audience, and definitely always good to see you, Father. He says, good evening, everyone.
Yes, thank you for coming there.
This is Chris, which I feel like I've seen his comment before, but he has a great comment here. He says, Your Grace, I've never said jeepers so frequently.
Do I say jeepers, Felix?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Or referred to a modernist as a turkey since I started watching New Age.
Do you know where this comes from? So, Chris, maybe you have a similar background. I don't know. But I used to be in the military, and my language was horrible. I didn't take our Lord's name in vain, but everything else was fair game. And I tried to substitute my bad language for some of these sort of silly words. But
golly, darn it to heck. No. Yeah, that's me. I did that awesome. Too.
Yeah, well, you guys keep teasing me on that stuff because I need it. It's good.
Oh no, hey, I do that almost. It's funny because I would do that as a trick, and it ended up becoming a habit. I say it all the time.
You know what? See if you're still on air, Chris. I wonder, can we make a drinking game out of it? No, just we'll have a New Year's special, and you guys can just count how many times you can get me to say jeepers. It'd be wonderful.
All right. Now, Father Hager says we have the Fourth Amendment to protect us from unreasonable search and seizures. Thank God. Oh, so yeah. That's very good. So
I just want to speak to that before we go to Lee. Here's the thing. This is the lesson I want you guys to take away from this. As France, England, and Canada show, constitutions are only good if the state enforces it. right? Or calls the BS. So in the US, the reason why the US, like what some people think is a bug in the system is a feature. You've got so many layers of sort of competing or overlapping responsibility that there's an authority. There's chances are that you've got at least one. Like, say, for example, say if you have a blue president but a red state, or vice versa, there can be pushback on certain things that at least will get a hearing that way. It's when the uniparty is the biggest threat to our democracy. The idea that people can basically say they believe in one thing but then vote the other way, and that's the problem. Let your yes be yes and your no be no, said our Lord, and that applies to politicians as well as it does to baptized Christians.
Amen. Yep. All right, so Lee says, I like Pope Leo XIII. I am named after him. That's right.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting. Also, Lee says Colby Jack. All right,
Jack,
shots fired. Here we
Actually,
go.
I like Pepper Jack too. I forgot to mention that. Colby
I
Jack.
know Pepper Jack.
Remind him.
Pepper Jack is actually it's up there, isn't it?
I like to. You know what's funny? We have a priest gathering once a month, and one of our priests who hosts it, Father Martin, he does all this work to prep it and all this, and there's always hors d'oeuvres. And I think I eat almost all the Pepper Jack and everybody every time. So there you go. Hope
now
that's not
who to blame. No, here we go.
I don't know where the line is here.
Yeah, Father Haga says we could do a cooking show with solely cheese-based products. I say, hey, cutting the cheese with Father and Felix. I think that's that would
reminds
be a great
me. It was a British kid show, Wallace and Gromit.
Oh yeah, I remember Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, and it featured cheese significantly.
And Dale here, go team blue cheese, which yes.
My friend Father John Melnick, he loved that. And I just never got into it. I don't know why. Yeah. But it certainly
you get a good blue cheese on a buffalo wing. That's heaven right there.
My mother would love it. My mother loved it too. Now I think about it. Yeah. She liked it in salad dressing.
Yeah, I hope there are hot wings in heaven. But we'll see. Lee says, "Are you writing these rabbit holes down?"
I'm not exactly, but like I say, when I do, like I say, I'm going to do these. I'm going to condense these episodes into. That's why it's very helpful for me if you guys say in the comments like what you find interesting or what you don't like or this kind of thing, or if you want to know more about something. It helps me a lot because what'll happen is when I go through them all, I'm going to do them in a big batch. I have a software here that will transcribe our video, and then basically I can just read it like a paper, and then I can cut it down. I haven't used it yet. I tried. I tried to use it for the pre-show there where you saw the cat going around. I was wanting to put that in the front piece, and they upgraded it so all my tutorials are like 2 versions ago, and I'm like, guys, don't be changing where the things in the menu is. But anyway, I have that the tech is there for me to find the stuff, and if you guys say it's interesting, whatever, then I'll just put it. I'll put it aside for a future project. Some weeks, the stories write themselves. We know what's going on, and other weeks I'm like, Felix, here's what I'm half thinking. What should we do? And then he picks one. So, yeah, sometimes they write themselves though. What's the next one there? Felix?
I usually pick the most outstanding, the most out there one.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you. Oh, we got to talk about this one. There's a good episode even on this there with Bishop Haygood was mentioning. So, but here's the thing. This 3-eye atlas. You want to talk about a rabbit hole, Felix?
Yes.
I'll save that to the end. But if you guys, anybody knows what I'm talking about 3-eye atlas, the thing is, you don't know what to believe. You don't know how much of it's clickbait. You don't know how much of it's whatever. But if you know somebody you trust a little bit, then you'll watch the show. So there was a physicist there I was familiar with. I mean, I knew he actually worked in university. He wasn't just some crazy guy in the basement, saying that he can levitate with vacuum tubes or something. He was, he has credentials. He's a little out there, but he's got credentials. And then there's a professor at Harvard, Loeb or whatever his name is. And he's staked his whole career on this thing. And then, so if the information that I saw is true from this physicist from Japan that I knew, Yeah, there's some weird stuff. So we might touch on this. I'm looking at my clock now. Yeah, we'll get through the comments in this, and we'll, if you guys are interested, we'll talk about that at the end. All right, so I'll let you read the bishop's comment there.
Yeah, so Father Higgins said that Muslim prayer room proves that the Vatican is proof that there is a schism in the Catholic Church and is teetering on the verge of total apostasy.
Yeah, so folks, if you didn't know this, okay, so Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who can be controversial in some figures, some people don't like him, which was a surprise to me when it came to tradition, but I understood later because he was sort of in favor of some of the new stuff, and then depending on who you talk to, he converted back towards the traditional value. But anyway, one of the things he said in 1946, when everybody loved him, was he predicted a time, and it's not his, by the way, he's curating. There's some ancient Catholic prophecy on this, that there will be an ape church. And C.S. Lewis hints at it in his last battle. Again, I don't want to get on that rabbit hole, but he hints at it, and even someone outside the church sort of knew about it. And basically, there's two churches existing in the same structure. So if I go to the local church that says Roman Catholic Church outside of it, in that congregation, let's say there's 1,000 people. I'd say there's at least 200 people in there that believe as I do, and Felix does, and Bishop Haygood does. There's probably at least 200, you know, but that's still 800 people that don't, right? And those are the people on Twitter. If you watch my Twitter interaction, and it seems that Monday's normally my bit day. Today, mea culpa, I'm going to publicly confess, all right? Because I'm accountable to God for the stewardship of my time. I got a great big stack. You guys can't see it. I should zoom out so you see all the paper everywhere and the file folders everywhere. Here's the thing. I got sucked in to a Twitter war today that was the equivalent of a hamster furious in a wheel that didn't move anywhere. The work that needed to be done did not get done. That's for an item for my examination of conscience today. And, you know, in the moment, you're thinking, oh, I'm helping this poor Protestant. No, I was just having an academic argument. And, you know, we wrapped it up nicely and respectfully, and it was good. But I got into this, you know, this war. And, but anyway, back to Bishop Haygood's point. I 100% agree with him that we have a problem, that there's only about 20% of people that go to Roman Catholic churches that share the Catholic faith with us. And you know what it has to do? It's with it's about definition. So on Twitter, some of these people will come back at me and they'll say, well, you're not a real Catholic unless you agree with everything that Leo thinks. And I'll just say, well, that's one definition. You know, if you define it as alignment with institution, then you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You know, and they're like, look at you funny, figuratively at least. Well, but is there any other way to define it? Yes, there is. So in my case, and I think Bishop Haygood agrees, we're of different organizations. So, but is the 20 doctrinal councils in the de fide aspect rejecting all innovation contrary? So what does that mean? Well, that means all this stuff since the 60s, anything that's contrary to the old faith, we don't accept. And so if the definition is the defined ecumenical council, then those, you know, 800 people in that hypothetical church, they're not the Catholics. We're the Catholics. So it could just be an agree to disagree thing, because really it depends on your definition. But it's kind of important for at least you to sort it out, what your definition is for you. And yeah, but anyway, so yeah, that the Vatican Muslim thing, it's pretty bad, guys. You realize they won't let traditional priests say a traditional mass in a lot of the Rome, but they allow Muslim prayer rooms and Anglicans and non-uniate Copts to use the papal altar. So it's a real in your face to people that are traditional Catholic. And the group that is sort of hurting the most is not the traditionals, because we sort of take we understand there's a remnant and we get it. And it's not the liberals, because the liberals feel that it's the Holy Spirit, or at least some sort of spirit giving them jollies. It's the conservatives. I feel bad. I feel bad for the Cardinal Burke fans and the like, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to come with the fact that your church leadership does not believe in the same religion as you do. And that gets people very upset, and they often attack the messenger. And it's like, hey, I'm on your side. I just want what God wants. But you have to realize that the situation, get angry at situation, not people. The situation is such that we have ape church that Fulton Sheen talked about. And it's going to be a hard sit down. Like I went through it. It's like a trauma. When you red pill through tradition, you go through the stages of grief, right? Like, because everything you believed in is now upended. And now you're like, oh my goodness, they lied to me. Yeah, some did, like the Bernardines of the world. Malachi Martin talks all about it. Father Malachi Martin, well, the good Father Martin. Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah.
You got another
we got
there?
a couple of good Father Martins on the
we do
on the list there. And again, for those who are listening for the first time, if you have a chance, look up Father Malachi Martin on Art Bell. There's a 7-video series playlist, of like each of his appearances. Outstanding, very entertaining. So Lee says my sons listen to him all the time. I think we were talking
to
about
our Father Martin
47.
No.
Was it Fulton Sheen you were talking about, or I forgot?
Could be Fulton Sheen.
Yeah. All right. So Father Haga says, as a tried and true Southerner, the Democrats have always been in favor of keeping their constituents broke while feeding the lie that they are for the people. Amen.
Yeah, it's a really weird thing. I just don't get it.
I fell for it.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, they all like AOC's worth what? How many millions? And what's her face? Elon Omar, $30 million, and they say they're for the poor. They're not for the poor. Yeah. I mean, it's the same mentality that's going on in Rome. You're telling Felix and I we should be opening up our guest rooms to undocumented, and you don't open up you have gates, you have guards, you don't do anything. Like it's really it gets a bit rich, right?
Yeah.
Rules cheeky for all of us, but not for the elite.
Yeah, amen. All right, so let's see. Joshua, our leftist, I think, liberal friend. Hey, welcome back, bro. He says it is an incumbent thing. People are so uninformed they vote for the recognizable name. Yes.
Yeah, it works both
vote
ways.
Blue, no matter who. They're not even voting for the name. They're voting the color.
I know Joshua and I tend towards different ends of the spectrum on some things, but I got to tell you, I know I can presume fairly confidently we agree on this. Far better a Democrat who's an honest Democrat than a Republican the ones that are pretending, right? So we want people to be as honest as they can. I understand politics is a difficult game. You're trying to please a lot of constituencies, and anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of the media, regardless of which party you're on. But I think we probably agree that let your yes be yes and your no be no. And it's actually very important that we get to a higher trust society so that we can once again hear ideas that are contrary without having to worry that there's an alternative motive, right? There's a lot of energy that's expended when you're dealing with low trust. There's a lot of energy worrying about your safety, about your, about are you going to get ripped off? Are you going to? Now, if you have a high trust environment, and you're sitting with somebody that you disagree with on a couple key things, you learn from one another in a high trust environment. But in a low trust environment, you're always waiting for the backstab. And that's part of the reason why things are broken down. I think in part, and I'd be interested in Joshua's thoughts if he wants to share them. I think in part it's because the media, as the internet age expanded and as the media started losing ground, they started getting more sensational with their headlines and their narrative in order to get clicks. But in doing so, they created a polarization so that liberals and conservatives can't talk to one another like human beings. And there's common problems that we should be having adult discussions. Like, for example, the fertility rate plummeting, right? So why is that? So smart people of goodwill on both sides are going to come with different concerns, right? Like it could be, well, we can't afford kids. Anthropologically, are we losing hope in the future, right? What about economic justice issues? Like, a person who worked at a car plant 20, 30 years ago could afford to have 4 or 5 kids with a nice salary and good benefits. But now they never know when the hatchet's going to drop. So, I mean, I'm just taking examples out of the air. And again, Joshua might have some as well. But that's why I welcome him very much, because, we want people to disagree with us a little bit too. That's and also not be afraid of agreeing with us, even if it's against their own teams from time to time. Because I think that's the real tragedy. Is that look at how the right and the left, I hate these terms, but just for convenience,
I know.
Look at how the right and the left are attacking their own right now. Like, just try to remove yourself from all of us. I'm speaking to all of us here. Remove yourself from your own team for a moment and just try to be like God, like an observer of it all for a minute. And it's very interesting how the enemy sows division with any good project, let alone a bad project. And the fights, conservative on conservative, and the fights, liberal on liberal, it's incredible how everybody's eating their own lately. It's just a complete feeding frenzy. I mean, all I have to do is say the word Candace Owens and it triggers everybody on the right. And all I have to do is, like bring up a Destiny or a Schumer and it triggers everybody on the left, right? So it is interesting what the devil is up to. If there is a spiritual warfare, and I think most of you watching this would agree that there is, it's a very interesting time to be alive for sure.
So, let me see. Father Haga says, I grew up in Florida. Tampa, Riverview is home. I love it, but it's not for me. My heart is in Nebraska. Yeah, Nebraska is probably super awesome. And I've been considering like different areas from time to time. Like, I wonder if I could get into North Dakota, like if I could get into that lifestyle, or Montana or Nebraska for that matter,
I'm trying to think I've ever been in Nebraska. I might have driven through it. I don't know.
Driven through it. One of those. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've driven through it.
Well, when you make a trip coast to coast diagonal, right? Like, I mean, you just want to get through. So I don't know whether I've driven through Nebraska. I used to have a boss that was from Nebraska. I used to work for Edward Jones, the investment firm. And my boss was from Nebraska, but I wonder what happened.
So we got a few more. Norm says these utopian, and he says that in quotes, social forms of enslavement compelled by ideological belief always remind me of the perfectly, harshly ordered world of the invasion of the body snatchers.
Norm, I've never seen that movie. I should. There's certain movies we should see just for their cultural import. And I mean, I know, was that the movie with the pod people, Felix?
The pod people.
Maybe Norm would know then.
I think so. Yeah, I think so because it's like a little alien thing that would get inside your body.
Yeah.
Right. And it started. I haven't seen it either. I just kind of
the
basic plot.
We haven't even touched this, and we're not going to tonight. It's a rabbit hole. But like, can you imagine if an evil person made an evil neural link and attached it to all this carbon stuff?
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but the chances of something like that happening are very slim, Father, right?
Yeah, of course. It'll never happen. Mr. Stay Pop will never hurt anybody. See, we need a clip of that to fire up every once in a while too. Mr. Stay Pop never hurt anybody.
Yeah. He was harmless. Yeah, right.
So you guys remember that, or am I just totally Gen Xing you all?
Oh yeah, I know. Listen, if you don't know Ghostbusters, you don't know America. That's like one of the that is about as close to a perfect movie you can get out of the 80s. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future. Those two are like, like near flawless films. All right, let me see. Father Hagen says, I'm working on providing a better life for all of us. January 2026, big things coming for the good of us all. Oh, that is awesome, because I know we have to do that trip there. I mean, let me tell you, I've been considering monastic living, period, in this day and age, just to stop sinning. I mean, that sounds like such a runaway answer, so that's probably what's keeping me back. But hey, sometimes it just seems so appealing. I feel like it's been calling me. But let me see. Norm says, I love Thomas Sowell. He was part of my awakening out of the liberal bubble of thought and false judgment and ideals. It's me and Norm were cut from the same cloth, I think, at least in certain aspects.
Same here. It'd be fun if we could have Norm and you meet at some point. I don't know, Norm, if you're interested in our gala in February. We haven't really started advertising for it, but we're doing one in Tampa. So those of you who want to meet Felix and I in person, I imagine we're going to set something up there. I'll talk to Felix down the road. But anybody who's interested, we have a we have a gala we're running as sort of a networking / fundraiser. So
Oof, I got to start exercising.
It'd be great if any of you want to. I've already had this happen. I've had people that knew me through Twitter, so I'm still, quite an amateur on YouTube. Notwithstanding Felix trying to help me out, but on the Twitter, I've had people that have moved in, moved to Florida, and they've reached out. They said, "Hey, you know what? I follow you on Twitter all this time. I really like to know if I can meet you, where your church is, all that kind of stuff." So it is kind of neat to meet some of your electronic friends. And Norm and I have actually met in person because I've gone out to his church to visit. So on
that's
the other
so
coast.
cool.
But it'd be nice for him to meet Felix too, and a couple of you.
Yeah, I would like that. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua hits us back. He says the median annual compensation of the CEOs of S&P 500 companies was over 17 million last year. Isn't the easiest way to get everyone owning a home is to make incomes more balanced?
Yeah, it's a
where
good.
we get a now we're playing with fire at this point too.
This is an example. See, I raised my hand and I confused the camera focus thing. So sorry for the blurry. This is exactly. It's kind of like the minimum wage debate, right? So the thing is, and that's where I think Norm, if he was to weigh in here. So I really encourage, if you haven't already watched some videos, or even if you prefer reading, this Thomas Sowell guy is a guy you should check out, because he basically, what he boils down to is he's interested in whatever works. So he's very pragmatical that way. And he would agree with you, I think, that certainly we all agree that we have to make housing more affordable. But the problem is that, it's a 1,000 variable problem, and everybody of both parties is treating it like a 3 or 5 variable problem. Right. And really it boils down to there should be some. I think you want to address executive compensation through certain types of social pressure versus legislation is the first thing I would say. And that's where left and right might have some overlap, or, the left would be more inclined to say, well, there should be a wage cap or something like this, and not trying to put words in Joshua's mouth. That may not be what he thinks at all. But it's funny because, you fix one problem and then it's like those puzzles. I got to learn what these puzzles are called. You stick it in the comments if you know. There's a technical name for this kind of puzzle. Imagine 4 dials. You move one dial, and so the first dial, it just moves itself. But then all the other dials move other dials. So there's a certain name for that kind of puzzle. And that's kind of like what it is. You're juggling these dials, and you fix one problem and you create 3 more. And that's the problem. Whenever we try to do price controls on rent, on salary, on groceries, like it has unintended consequences, because you're dealing with 1,000 variable problem and you're addressing 2 or 3. And what happens is, in the case of the grocery controls, the shelves go empty. In the case of the rent controls, the houses become unlivable because they're not maintained properly, and the like. And so there's a limits to what legislation can actually do. And the more control we exert, it's sort of paradox. The more control you do, people start just opting out of the system. So it's a weird thing of balance, which, maybe AI. I mean, we're scared of it becoming Skynet and some sort of weird overload, but maybe AI is going to give us all some more tools about finding a middle path between this stuff. So one of the things that I think Joshua might agree with me is that one of the problems with CEO compensation, and also, when corporations make policies that are contrary to their own business success, like let's take Disney, for example. Agree or disagree with the woke content at Disney, it was very hard on their bottom line. It was very hard on their profitability. Directors and officers have what they call a fiduciary duty. They have to act in the best interest of their shareholders. Here's the problem. If any of you are employed by a big corporation or what have you, or have a pension plan, or you have an IRA or all these things, typically most of us invest in the markets through what? Mutual funds. And these mutual funds, or investing in other products, investment products, ETFs and the like, the problem with investing in these big funds is that they basically take over your vote as a shareholder. So I would say one of the solutions to the problem Joshua mentions, or observations Joshua mentions, is that give the shareholders some means. Like, so so no longer let the fund companies vote on block. That's where the Black Rocks and the Vanguards and these big companies, where they have their power, they basically, people don't realize that when they invest in equities, they're supposed to get a vote per share, and they have no means of exercising it. So that would have been impossible to do, even a couple of years ago. But with the rise of blockchain technology and the like, there should be some way of tracking this ability to vote, and then basically appointing a proxy that agrees with you. So I think part of it is that, for me, the way I look at it is, what should a CEO get paid? It should be based on what they actually produce. It should be based on their actual contribution, and different companies are going to measure it a different way. And also, I think you have to look at, are they enriching themselves unjustly on their employees, and also or through bad business practice. But we got to be so careful about legislating that from the government. I think what we can do is put transparency on this stuff and make these people hold to account. Because if you knew that a company was doing something that you were ethically opposed to, you just won't use it. It happened to me. There was a store that I used to go to on a weekly basis that did something that was against my worldview to such an extent that I've never gone into it again. And that was years ago. And they lost thousands of dollars from this one person. I can't be the only person. It actually takes a lot to offend me. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think that's how you influence it, that we should come to see, is a CEO worth 70 million? Sometimes. But then what are they doing? What are they doing good to merit it? What are they doing good to merit it? So,
and then eventually, the one thing I would add to that is, just imagine if it was your business, Joshua, you know what I mean? We can even scale it back. I don't know if you have a kid or not, but let's say you live in an apartment building and you come to an agreement with your son and you say, hey kiddo, I'll tell you what, you wash the dishes for the week and I'm going to give you $20. Now, how would you feel if the landlord called you, the apartment building, and say, hey, listen, you're not giving your son enough allowance for washing those dishes? At some point you're gonna be like, listen, man, you gotta mind your business. And I think that's kind of like where we're at with government in certain degrees, and especially when it comes to money. Because anytime they try to put like some sort of restriction, some sort of anything when it comes to money, it's gonna come with a tax.
Well, and I think where Joshua would probably agree with us both, Felix, too, is there should be some accountability. It's like what we were saying with Seoul. Like, I mean, so if they do something to damage the country or the company, excuse me, then there should be a direct consequence to them. They shouldn't get a 17, so this is the thing, like, what kind of criteria, and it would evolve. Like, we're going to make adjustments. We're going to make mistakes maybe on what we should measure. But, you learn. And I'd say that applies to senior bureaucrats and government officials, and elected and non-elected. So a lot of things. Here's something that some people aren't aware of, and I want everyone to be aware of. There's a whole bunch of government positions that people get 100% pensions, and they can retire very young. And those have to be looked at, right? Because that means your county or your state or your nation is paying out like these, and they're quietly done. So I mean, it's definitely a golden retirement. If you retired making $200,000 a year, and it's index pension, and you get 100% of it even when you retire, that's a pretty good deal. But the problem is, who's paying for it? What contribution are they making? So I think Joshua's right with regard to we should be looking at distribution of wealth. But I would argue, and maybe you disagree, that we should be looking at maybe a Pareto distribution. So what do I mean by that is that 80% of the wealth probably should be owned by 20%. But that's not what we have right now. We have like 90% owned by 3% or something stupid. Someone can fact check me. So, but a 20-80 is probably, that's the way nature works. That's the way the world works. There's a reason. As long as the capital, that there's equal opportunity, not necessarily equal outcome. And as long as there's a fair competition, we can argue about what we need to do to make it more fair. Then basically there should be an unequal compensation and what have you, but there has to be a cost. It's like there was a CEO. He said, and I mean, again, you might like him, you might dislike him, whatever. I don't know the guy, but he was saying, these people, they say he made 8 million or something. And he said, they say that I'm getting paid too much. He said, I spent 12 hours a day, 7 days a week away from my family and all this kind of stuff for like 2 decades or 3 decades. I did this. And my point of this, I'm not saying that means he's worth 8 million. He may or may not be, depending on what he's producing. What I am saying is that people sometimes forget the other side, is that sometimes people are paid more because they did more work. They were more successful. They took greater risks. And you want to incentivize, you want to reward the risk takers, because it's the risk takers that make innovation. So if everybody just is in the Borg, everybody's just a government worker in a cubicle, and we all make the same amount of money, and the manager might make $100 more a week or something stupid, but we really all make the same amount of money. Well, that equality is not a good equality, because there's no incentive. There's no incentive to take the risk. There's no incentive to work the 12-hour days if that's what you want to do. And you know what? That's not winning for everybody. It's not winning for a lot of family people. If you have a family, why would you want to work 7 hours a day, 12 hours a day, or 16 hours a day? That would be, a sin against your family. I mean, other than brief periods. I mean, obviously a naval officer's away for a year, or year on, a year off, that kind of thing. There's occasions that are beyond your control, but yeah, hopefully you're motivated by something more than money. And there's definitely economic injustice. The thing is, I would say the more transparency we can put on the system, and the more we can get people of goodwill from different points of view, that's how we sort of resolve this stuff. And everybody has to be prepared to listen to one another, though. That's the thing. And we got to be very careful about legislating or things top down. It's better if we put light on stuff and let the people themselves put the pressure, either through their buying decisions or through social expectation, I would say. But I don't know. This is just a matter. My opinion's not worth any more than Joshua's or Felix's or anything on this subject.
No. Yeah, Joshua. Yeah, for sure. Like, obviously, if you have a difference in opinion, which I think you may have.
Yeah.
It's what it is. So it's no big deal. We still appreciate you having it here. Joshua West again says the workaround to the 14th Amendment is they buy the information from data brokers that we allow to collect.
Yeah. Yep. So I think we probably all agree on that too, that there's some real problems with these terms of service, right? Like there should be it's kind of like maybe they could do something like the Creative Commons license, where, if you use an image or whatever, everybody knows it's just a basic license. You either have to pay for it, or you can do a Creative Commons where maybe we should have a simplified system of terms of service that scale it down to something manageable, like 3 or 4 different options that you can just know by letter or color or something. Because do you know there was a software company, Felix, that put in the fine print that you sold your soul to them? Like they did it as a joke because no one reads.
The water company yeah.
Right, but people did, right? And then afterwards, the company said everybody gets their soul back and all this kind of stuff. But it is kind of weird. And so, the other thing about law is
liquid death. That's what it was.
It is a principle in Western law that ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? We've all heard the phrase, but remember when we came up with that idea, there were like 1,000 laws. Like right now, there's like millions of laws. We probably all run afoul of some unintentionally.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, this is part of the thing, is that we need to simplify these systems, whether it be the terms of service from these data brokers, whether it's just regular law. That sometimes ignorance of the law should be an excuse in a sense that the laws are too complex. So the law should be able to be understood by someone in grade 9 or 12. Like and when they pass them, for the love of all that's good and holy, why do we have these 12,000 page bills? Like they should be 3 pages, even if they have to pass 100 bills in a day or whatever. At least have them named what they are, so that we can go back and look at this and reference it, and that it makes the law and regulation accessible to the ordinary person. If the ordinary person can't understand a regulation, it's too complicated. So we've created this weird scholar class, this weird bureaucrat class. Its whole job is just to understand the arcane convolution that's by invention. And no greater example of that is probably the tax code, which even most tax lawyers say is a mystery. Tax accountants and lawyers, they pay $10,000 a year or more for these subscriptions to these advisory services, so they themselves know what's going on. I had a friend who was an accountant. His tax software cost him $10,000 a year, and that was 20 years ago. So Lord only knows what it costs now. So it wasn't like the TurboTax, whatever that ordinary people buy. It was all the bells and whistles that can understand all of the stuff for rich people, and it was a big, heavy subscription fee. But the question is, okay, well, why is it that complicated? Why can't it just be on a postcard? Like, here's how much money I took in. Here are my allowable deductions. Here's my tax. But then we'd be putting out hundreds of thousands of people out of work in the tax industry. But it's an industry that's literally made on unicorn farts. It's literally made just simply because we want the complexity. We choose the complexity. So I don't know.
All right, so Father, I'm going to put on the next comment. Before I do, I have to step away for a quick second.
Oh, that's okay. I'll do the next part. I'll do the next part.
Okay, cool. I'll be right back, though. Yeah. All right, cool. So let's see. So Father Haygood says, I never experienced that. I was brought up in tradition and didn't celebrate a Novus Ordo until I took over a single parish in Grand Island because they're dead set on that for now.
Yeah, I like your optimism. Yes, it is hard. I mean, yeah, but anyway, another rabbit hole. We don't want Father to go down a rabbit hole. Me,
right.
Not just him.
All right, now yes. I'm going after this. So he says, come visit me in Nebraska. Father Haygood, I am so serious. We've talked about this before. It has been staying in my head. I at least would want to visit. And I say that again, at least want to visit. And I want to see what happens if I like it. What's going on, but I am absolutely down to go visit.
Felix can do the podcast from Nebraska.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That would be kind of cool. All right, and I'll let you take over. I'll be right back.
Yeah, and I just want to say to Joshua, normally Felix reads the comment. I will here. Absolutely, people are ready to push past the good and search the perfect. There's solutions of compromise, but few want to work with those who are ideologically poor. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, I'm all about people of goodwill, right? Like, I'm very opinionated. But my brother, like, he is like card-carrying Marxist, basically, right? Well, I love very dearly. But the great thing about him is we used to tease each other from the time I was, a kid. But that guy is the real deal. Like, he's the head of a union, and he suffers for it, right? Because a lot of his own people give him grief and all this. And he's just a great guy. He and I view the world very, very differently. But he understands that, it's for our starting points, first of all, right? And also we're formed by what hurt us or what encouraged us in our earlier years. It really does. So it takes quite a trauma to shift us from our original position. People don't, Twitter arguments rarely sway a single soul. You can plant seeds and then something happens in somebody's life and we see things a different way. But I agree with you. Like I don't know you well. We haven't met in person or this kind of thing, but you strike me as exactly the kind of person that, I could deal with in a business. Like I would welcome it. I would say, your kind of respectful disagreement when you do disagree is good because it keeps us from drinking our own bathwater, right? And that's very, very important. And if the true goal, we hold people to what they say, but not in an adversarial way. But like, for example, like say if I'm the boss and you're the vice president and I say, we want to be profitable, but we want to take care of our workers in an ethical way. And then I start doing stuff that's hurting the workers. And then you as the vice president, second in command, say, hey boss, you say this is going against what are we doing? And then there's a discussion, right? And then maybe you don't know that there's something else coming down the pike in 3 years that I haven't shared. And so when I tell you, you're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And that's how in high trust, people are able to solve problems. In low trust, this is my critique of the union. And my brother, I think he would agree with some of it. I don't know how much he would. But, my issue with the unions were, first of all, I love the idea. Like, Leo XIII, all in favor of guilds and stuff. So, but the thing is that here's the problem. When you mandatorily enforce people to join, that's kind of an issue. And then second of all, there's arguments for and against, and I know we don't get that down that rabbit hole, but that would be my issue. But the second thing and the bigger thing is that union and management if they're going to be adversarial, then do it in a way that's also collegial, for lack of a better term. And what I mean by that is that, say if you're a public defender and you're working with the prosecutor, and you just want people to get their constitutional rights in a fair trial, but you're not the kind that is going to break the rules to get a guilty person off. You'll give them the benefit of the doubt. You'll work to the rule of law. You'll and afterwards, the two of you, because you're both ethical people, can have a beer together and talk about stuff and about how maybe common things like court processes and whatever, that there's overlap without a conflict of interest and duty, that you can agree on and work together and make the life easier for everybody. So that's kind of my philosophy. Is I just want the real, true, and good, and I don't like to see the little guy stomped on. So I think we share with that. I'm also hesitant to say that we do need to compensate certain risk takers and whatever, maybe disproportionate. And it's okay for us to agree to disagree on this. It's just that I do think that we should encourage a certain meritocracy, but without leaving the vulnerable behind. So and how do we do that in the current system? And the only way that's going to be solved is not by people of just one point of view. We need a better way of problem solving, for sure. So I'm going to finish up this last little section, and Felix will be back, and we'll probably go a little late just because I got on the rabbit holes. So I want to say the next section is on Lord of the World. So I mention this all the time. I'm a big Lord of the World fan, but Benson's prophecy. So in 1907, this Monsignor Robert Hugh Benson, he was a convert to Catholicism, and he was the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he was a brilliant novelist. He wrote Lord of the World. He also wrote I think it's something like 40 books. Someone can fact check me. I hope I'm not confusing him with somebody. But he's known for like 2 of them, but he's actually wrote a crap load. And he describes a future in Lord of the World. He describes a future with humanity, where humanity achieves peace through a charismatic leader who unites the world under a humanitarian religion, which is based on the Catholic Church. And I'll tell you a story. In the 1990s, I was a chaplain as a seminarian for military. I was up in Canada, and they allow student chaplains. And I was it was my training year, and I was on an air base. And but I made friends with this Baptist, and we used to banter a lot. And we talked about the Antichrist and how he thought that the Antichrist was, very possibly going to be, at the time, John Paul II. And there's a number of reasons why that doesn't make sense, right? Like, I'm harsh on the institutional church, but the Antichrist is not going to be a pope. And there's a couple good reasons for it. The false prophet might be a pope. The figure in Apocalypse that's called a false prophet may well be a pope. But I don't think we've seen him yet. And I don't think that the Antichrist is certainly not going to be a pope. He's going to be a charismatic political leader that offers humanity a solution to all our problems at the expense of the true faith. So that's how you're going to know the Antichrist. And I believe it's going to come from a number of different vectors. It's going to come from either the space alien thing. I know that sounds funny, but it's truly one way that you could convince most of the world that Christianity is false. If you had people that are claiming to be space aliens and Jesus was really one of them, a lot of people would defect, right? Especially if the Vatican went along with it. The other thing is what's another vector? Another vector of Antichrist would be this new world government with a pope as the figurehead of the new religion. And I don't think Leo is there. I don't think Francis is there. This could be 100 years away, or it could be 3 years away. The way the AI thing is setting up for all of us, it's going to be pretty wild. There's going to be a lot of changes. It's going to be a bigger rupture than the Industrial Revolution. So one of the things I'm trying to, and if any of you are into economics or stuff like that, please reach out to me on Twitter. My concern, okay, and this transcends left-right boundary, okay. My concern is that if this AI does what we're told it's going to do, there's going to be a real problem with human dignity, right? This UBI, it sounds great. There's YouTube videos of these young women, like in their 20s, going, "Oh, UBI, it's going to be so great. Everybody's going to be paying this big salary, and we don't have to work, and you can just do art and dance." And I'm like, oh, for the love of it, first of all, there's a lesson in that movie, The Matrix, that's very key. There was a scene in The Matrix where the AI tells the protagonist that they tried different iterations of the simulation, and that they originally created a world which had no hardship, and the people, they basically died. It didn't work. So that the certain kind of suffering, a certain kind of challenge is part of the human condition on Earth. And the problem with the AI, I don't think it's going to lead to a Star Trekian utopia. It'd be nice if it did. I think we don't have people of virtue that are actually in the position of the bureaucracy, the church, and the government, and the media, and the education system. There's probably only 20%, of which you are probably part of it, okay? If you're watching something like this, there's probably only 20% of humanity that actually cares about actual virtue versus the signal of it. And basically, we got these roaming packs of non-player characters, NPCs, that are just going like a school of fish. A couple key influencers move the whole school from one to the other. We create all this false conflict between right and left and different religions and what have you, not while ignoring the true deceptions that are being set up. So it's kind of hard. It's like I feel like I'm Cassandra sometimes, or that I'm screaming at a hurricane. So again, if you're watching this, you probably already get it. I'm in a way preaching to the converted, but it's nice that you know that you're not alone. Okay. The thing is that this machine is too big for me or you to stop alone. And if I'm right, it's going to take God's intervention himself. And I don't exclude that. I think it's going to either wrap up fairly soon, or there's going to be an era of grace that will precede that wrap up, that apostasy and wrap up. So that's my personal belief. That's not like a defeat day teaching. That's not a church teaching. That's my personal belief. But I'm pretty good at recognizing patterns. And the pattern I see is that we are on a telos of auto-destruct as a species. And it's from this weird psychologically engineered self-hatred. And that Trump, love him or hate him, is the world's pattern interrupt against this. There's a couple other politicians and social figures that are also like pattern interrupts, but for whatever reason, it's Trump that got the traction. And some of you want to face plant, and I get it. There are days I want to face plant with it too. But the thing is, it's not about people are, they get fixated on the policy, and they don't realize, like, they don't like a certain policy. They don't know he's mean to immigrants or whatever. Okay, fine, he's mean to immigrants, which I don't agree with. But let's say that's your position. Right. Don't miss the forest for the trees. That the globalist Borg wants to take you over and make you on a carbon app, and eventually they'll probably want a chip that implants to measure all this stuff. And with the wrong politician, you're what resistance are you going to do? I mean, some people on Twitter, I'm going to be like Red Dawn. You're not going to be like Red Dawn, dude. Like, you're free video games and a bong, and you're going to be, seriously, right? So, I mean, people are, at the end of the day, a lot of people are all hat, no cattle. I mean, we all have a temptation to it, myself included. I just want to do the right thing, and I'll tell you right now, there is no earthly advantage to my path as clergy. There was no earthly advantage. I make 1/10 of what I did pre-ordination, and that's not even accounting for inflation. I make probably a lot more than that. But the point is, it's not about that. It's about the mission is bigger than ourselves, and life is short. None of us are getting out of life alive, right? I love that saying. Right. And so really my time on earth is spent just basically trying to find fellow travelers who pursue the real, true, and good. And if you notice, I'm not ashamed, or here I am wearing my bishop's cross and a collar and all this. But I'm actually, my audience is people of goodwill across multiple religious traditions. And what I'm saying is, I'm against that Borg religion, but I'm not against people working together who are just trying to seek the truth and the best way, that can agree to disagree like adults. Like we all could years ago, but apparently it's not culturally common now. So again, sorry for the other rabbit hole. So back to the Lord of the World. The true cost in the book Lord of the World is that gave the world peace and absence of war, but that true Christianity is outlawed as divisive. So you had to take the modern form of Christianity. And the new religion worships humanity's potential on the earth. And compassion is defined as conformity to consensus, which it kind of was under COVID. And traditional Catholics who insist on dogmatic truth are labeled extremists or fundamentalists, and eventually marginalized, debanked, and eliminated. And that sounds familiar, doesn't it? So Francis mentioned this book. This is really cool. Now, so you can be a totally non-religious person, and what I'm about to tell you is pretty cool. You have Francis, Benedict, Leo, all recommend this book. And every once in a while, someone says to me, well, that doesn't make any sense. Benedict and Francis were apart in so many things. Right. So you look at the two factions presented of church, two conceptions of church are presented in that book. And read that book with that. It's 99 cents on Kindle. I'm going to make a little slide with the barcode on it, Felix. Now that I know how to make a QR code, I'm going to do it all the time now. We'll just put these slides up. People can find the links. Some people say, why don't you just put the links in the description? Well, because apparently for smaller channels, YouTube doesn't really like it when you do the links, according to some YouTube gurus. Of course, they can never be wrong. But so I try to limit the links in the description, but we'll accept. You can refer to any other YouTube post. So maybe that's a clue. I could put the QR codes and the links in text form in the community post, and then just maybe make links to the community post. Maybe I should do that. Try to keep YouTube happy with me. So the thing is that the Antichrist in Benson's novel doesn't show up with horns and a pitchfork. He shows up offering solutions to suffering. He's compassionate. He's efficient. He cares about the environment. He wants unity. And everyone who disagrees is cast as a problem, right? And I've been on the nasty end of that. And I'm like, hey, I've been called a hater or something. I was like, dude, I love everybody. I don't know what you're going on about. I hate ideas. I'll fight tooth and nail for an idea, but I'll have a beer with somebody afterwards. I'm not, but some people that are offended, like, my idea is so core to me. If you disagree with my idea, you hate me. No, I don't hate you. No. I think that we have different starting points and different sources of information. And given that, of course, we're going to differ. So here's the parallel to the carbon allowances in the book. The carbon allowances are a perfect tool for Benson's dystopia. They're a universal implementation. Everyone participates. There's no escape. It's global. There's virtue signaling built in. Compliance becomes proof of compassion. Resistance becomes proof of selfishness. There's a secular priesthood. There's technocrats and algorithms replace confession and conscience. The system tells you if you're good based on your carbon score. There's an imminent focus. Save the planet, not your soul. Manage the earth, not sin. Achieve equality, not sanctity. Elimination of dissent. If you reject the system, you're not just wrong, you're dangerous. That's why the FBI had trad Catholics on the list under the last regime. You're harming the common good. Therefore, you must be silenced or punished. And Benson understood that the greatest tyranny comes dressed as compassion. Boy, listen, you know what? Doesn't matter if you're right or left on that one. Isn't that true? The greatest tyranny comes dressed as compassion, right? So where are we now? Right. We're living in Benson's dystopia. Not completely, but the foundation's being laid. And the thing is that when the institutional church aligns with the global elites who literally design systems to track and control your cheese consumption for the planet, we've crossed the line. When religious leaders provide theological cover for technocratic surveillance, we have lost the plot. When caring for creation becomes justification for enslaving humans, we've embraced the Antichrist methodology. The church's job is not saving the planet. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be good stewards, but its job is not saving the planet. The church's job is saving souls. And any alliance that forgets this, no matter how well-intentioned, leads to hell. And maybe not immediately, and maybe not dramatically, but inevitably. So what do we do? To wrap it all up, and then we'll take a couple more questions. And if you guys anybody wants to talk about 3i Atlas, we will. But or we'll save it for another show even. But there you go. So the antidote is, what do we do? So first, we recognize the spiritual dimension. So some of you here are watching, you might be curious seculars, or you might be like baptized but not really churchy. The thing is, I want you to consider that there's a spiritual warfare going on. There really is. And a number of secular thinkers have woken up to this. You know, I think of Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson. People that were not religious people are now true believers in the spiritual warfare. And this isn't just politics or economics. It's the balance of the nature of reality itself. So that really is what's going on. It's not really Democrat versus Republican or even globalist versus nationalist. It's whether, what is the nature of reality? It's questions that are really best treated with that movie, the first movie, that Matrix, allegorically anyway. Do humans exist to serve the system, or does the system serve to exist human flourishing? So that's a question that both right and left really need to sit and talk about. What are we really after? What are we really after? And we see a big shift. You know, it used to be that the left was all about the blue collar manufacturing worker, and now it's about like the trans and stuff. And why is that? So it doesn't matter what your opinion is on whether that's a good thing. What are your thoughts on why it shifted? And now who's speaking for the blue collar manufacturer worker, right? So
Right.
That's the thing. So is creation ordered towards our sanctification? And if you're a secular person, like, or a Stoic or something like that, sanctification simply means growing in human virtue, right? So there's a lot more common ground. You don't have to share my religious tradition to find value in some of this stuff. We have a lot more common ground. We just use slightly different vocabulary. Or are we ordered towards creation's preservation? These are theological questions, whether you're religious or not. And the answers determine whether we resist or comply with what is coming. So second, I would say live the counter-revolution. So remember Plinio's framework. If there's a revolution moving towards servitude, there must be a counter-revolution moving towards freedom under God. And there's practical steps. So you can reject digital dependency as much as possible. Definitely resist the CBDCs, central bank digital currency. We should be safe in the US for a while from them, but they're going to be a reality in Europe. Build local networks, know your neighbors, build community again, create communities, foster communities that can exist without centralized systems, learn skills, grow food, repair things, reduce dependency on corporate supply chains, refuse compliance, virtual signaling. So don't download the carbon tracking app. Don't celebrate your ESG score. Don't make yourself complicit with what's coming, because they're selling. Of course, it sounds great. So a lot of the stuff sounds wonderful, but it's a trap. It's a veneer to cover an enslavement. Speak truth. When they roll out carbon allowances as compassionate, say, no, this is tyranny dressed as virtue. So, some hill's worth dying for. My dad used to say this. He was a pragmatist. He prided himself being a pragmatist. I would just shake my head because I'm not really. And so he says to me, son, you can only fall on your sword once, after I was ranting about something, right? And I'd like say to him, Dad, sometimes you have to. And he looked at me and he sort of nodded. He was like, yeah, you're right too. Sometimes you have to fall on your sword, but you can't only fall on your sword once. So you go big or go home, right? You kind of do your equivalent of personal Texas. So third, return to the first commandment. So for those of you who are believers, this means living that thou shalt love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, and with thy whole soul, and with thy whole mind. Okay, that's what we have to live. And the thing is, and our neighbor as ourselves, but how much love do we have for ourselves? So, I mean, it puts it into perspective. But yes, we love our neighbor in honor of God. And the thing is, if you're not religious, your equivalent would be basically you live for the real, true, and good, which are other definitions of God, by the way. But because if you don't believe in our God, then hopefully your common ground can be that you understand this and find a common cause and alignment. And of course, from the Christian perspective, that plants seeds for you to eventually embrace the faith as well, right? So yes, we have ulterior motive, but we're transparent about it, and we're not going to nag you about it. We're just going to create an environment where that discernment of God is possible. So thou shalt love thy Lord, the Lord thy God, with thy whole heart and thy whole soul, with thy whole mind. Not thou shalt manage thy carbon footprint, or thou shalt submit to global governance for the common good. which we roll
Thou
our
shalt
eyes
eat the
because
bugs.
it's often, yeah. Thou shalt replace religious truth with humanitarian compassion. No. When we put God first, actually first, not theoretically first, systems that demand we worship the earth or the state or efficiency become intolerable. And the first commandment makes you ungovernable by false gods. So, Felix, we got any more comments?
What was the last comment you read? Because I believe we do.
The last one was Joshua. I think the next one is Norm. I'll put him up here. I'll let you read them.
Okay, let me find my. Okay, only two great versions of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's the original 1956 black and white version, and there's a 1978 remake with Donald Sutherland. That one has like a famous meme picture. That's what I remember from him.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Open. Yeah.
So little factoid. I'm pretty sure Donald Sutherland lived in Nova Scotia for a while. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, he was pretty he was a really good actor. He was one of my favorites back then. Pod people are these completely substituted by alien identities as collective hive mind. That sounds from a Democratic Party. Okay.
I should watch that. It is really funny watching all those guys. You know what? Like the news is surreal, guys.
Fresh eyes.
Like it's just surreal. Like just watching the whole world is so different than what we were taught as kids. I mean, if you're older than the age of 40, you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Now, again, this is why I really want us to. I can't wait to watch. I want to do a watch along with you with V for Vendetta. We still didn't finish They Live. We got only halfway through.
No, we didn't finish that other movie we started to watch. So one day, Felix and I, after the show, he's been having supper after the show lately, but we watched a movie together just on the common channel, so it was kind of cool. But anyway, we'll have to finish that. But anyway, yeah, we'll move on to the next comment.
Okay, and this is second to last.
There you go.
You see, Lee says Robert Hugh Benson
books.
wrote 27 books, and Lee closes it out with Bible stands for basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Absolutely. Okay, Felix. So that was a good discussion on this topic. So was anybody surprised that they were going to try to regulate your cheese consumption?
I know, right? Is anybody really surprised?
Yeah, it is kind of weird. I mean, it all starts with the big gulp, right? They outlawed the big gulp in New York or something. And I mean, I don't want people drinking a quart of sugar either, but it's their right to do so. And then there's all these arguments with the hospitals and everything. But I mean, we really do have to preserve individual freedom as much as we can, if it's not hurting anybody else. So it's there's that. So this 3i Atlas, Felix, I'm gonna bring it up.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna pray right now for those of you who aren't interested in this very fringe topic, because I don't think I want to do a whole video on it. So I'll pray and say goodnight to those who want to leave early. But we will talk about this very fringe topic just for about 10 minutes, maybe. Okay. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. God, our Father, creator of all things, we praise and thank you for your gifts. Thank you for this time together. Help us discern in the spirit of Leo XIII and Fulton Sheen, Belloc, Plinio, and Chesterton, and Soul, and the other good secular people who also seek the real, true, and good. Help us to all incline our hearts to your will and see the world and the church and our carbon capture or lack thereof as you wish us to see. And may Almighty God bless us, Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen. So, Felix, 3i Atlas, what do you know of it? It's okay to say absolutely nothing.
I know more than I wish to know, but yeah, apparently this is this foreign object outside of our solar system that is headed towards us. They've been tracking it. Now I think it's making its way around our sun, and there's speculation that it's heading towards us. I think it's a big rock, personally, but I am willing to entertain the idea of it possibly being real, but not UFOs.
Well, what I mean, I don't have an opinion like I'm totally agnostic as far as, what it is scientifically, but I got to tell you, so here's my story with it. I'd see if it resonates with any of you guys. So I start seeing this thing, like there's all this YouTube stuff, basically space aliens, all this kind of crap, right? And what I do is I look at the YouTube channel that's offering it. And if it's from a channel that I sort of trust, I'll watch it. If it's from a channel I don't, I won't. Or it had in one of the images, like the show I watched last night, it had an image of a physicist that I knew. So I was sort of curious. Okay, I know this guy is a little fringy, but he's also real, right? So he's a little. And I thought, okay. And then I saw this interview from the guy from Harvard, this Loeb guy. So I knew it wasn't just like two-headed man sings in stereo on the Inquirer. So I watched the video yesterday, and it just struck me, okay, this is really weird. It taught me a bunch of things I didn't know. Maybe you can fill in the blanks. And basically, this is what was described by the physicists. He didn't say it was space aliens. He just said, this is what's freaking everybody out. And what I found interesting is NASA classified. See, whenever they do this, then alarm bells ring. I'm like, why did you classify this information? What exactly would be secret about this? So there's an interstellar object coming in, and it orbited the sun. I'm just telling you what this guy said. And they expected that if an interstellar object does this, they calculate all this stuff with gravity of this mass and this whatever, it's expected to accelerate slingshot around the sun, right?
Right.
But apparently, it's changed velocity, and it looks like it's setting up orbit in between Mars and Jupiter. And that is impossible for a natural object unless our physics is that far off. So it's a fascinating story, a mystery, regardless of what it is, because they can't explain it. Science has to be predictable and repeatable, right? And this particular object does not conform to the predictive model, and therefore it's having everybody freak out. And of course, some are talking aliens, and some are talking maybe it's a new kind of composed of some sort of new type of materials that we don't understand, but it's causing a big hullabaloo. So what say you, Felix?
I think it's a giant psyop. All right, so this is where we can get real dark and real crazy. I personally think that it's just a foreign object in our solar system, and it's being used as a psychological
like a Project
operation.
Bluebeam kind of thing.
Definitely, there's there's Project Bluebeam, and for those who don't know, that is a legitimate project that you can look up. There's historical fact back in this, where it is the government staging a fake alien invasion with holograms and light shows and the like.
So in Rome, we talked about this a couple episodes ago, but for those of you who don't know, in Rome they did something pretty neat in the sense of just weird neat. Great big light display made from drones is 3D Francis head floating over St. Peter's. And if they have the tech to do that with the equipment available, just for a light show like this, what exists on the higher end that they can project any image they want in the sky? So, I mean, we're coming to a point anthropologically as a human species where we're going to not know what's real anymore. Like the AI is advancing. You could have Felix and I deep fake us, out fishing trout, and we're doing the podcast fishing trout. And we're like, no, we're both in our little studios here. And, but like right now you could tell that we're not really there, but it's pretty close. And compared, everybody's seen the famous Will Smith eating spaghetti. That seems to be the benchmark. They replay
the
Will Smith
test
eating spaghetti.
Of AI.
But man, oh man, it looks like he's really eating spaghetti now. The first one has 3 hands and spaghetti flying everywhere like octopus, and
the noodles like melt into his face, kind of, and
But the new one started, So it is kind of funny, like to be iconic like that. Poor Will Smith, he's going to be remembered for 2 things: slapping Chris Rock and eating spaghetti.
Yeah. Now this gets into a lot deeper, and Father Haygood is in for the talk here. He says, I'm 100% sure it's demonic. I agree. Right. And then he follows up and says, I've said that the James Webb Space Telescope looks like the inside of a projector. All right. So this gets into the whole
but okay, well, I want to throw this at Bishop Haygood actually before we move too down on it's a subset of a rabbit hole here, Bishop Haygood. So my understanding is the Chandra X-ray telescope, totally unrelated to 3i Atlas. The Chandra produced data on the cooling of the universe that suggested a heliocentric universe, and they all freaked out. And they started. Next thing you know, multiverse was being tossed around again, and everything, which of course was a theory from the 50s that's regained popularity. And a lot of the science fiction actually pushes this multiverse stuff again. But why I mentioned Chandra is it is funny because every once in a while, the science backs us a bit, right? And it's interesting to see the reactions. So it's, again, there's people that probably are legitimate, like manipulating stuff, and then there's stuff that it's just weird. And it could very well be. I mean, what's a demon and an angel defined by a secular person that doesn't believe in God? They would say, well, we could agree on the definition of interdimensional being, right? Yeah. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see. Tucker's convinced they're all demons, so it's interesting. I don't believe there's intelligent life beyond humans. Now, there's an argument that maybe some could time travel or something crazy. I mean, you end up in some weird science fiction stuff too, but I don't. There's a number of reasons, which is beyond the scope of our extra 10 minutes to ponder what they could be. But I tend to think it's either demonic or it's it's some sort of, I don't know, Felix. I mean, if it's changing velocity, like there's nothing that explains it, so it's kind of weird.
And again, this is me saying, is it really changing velocity? I mean, I don't even know if I believe these claims, period. Okay, so that's one. Now, the demonic aspect of it could just be in the deception of it happening.
Right.
The whole staging of this, which I think is more often than not. Now, if we go with that, there is something really happening here, then we get into the two schools of thought. I heard this really crazy conspiracy, and I'll keep it brief. But one is saying that, there's the one school of thought is like, no, these are demons that are going to come to invade us. Then I heard the opposite, saying that this is actually God's army coming, and the deception is to get us to fight them, and whoever, and whatever the case may be, I'm sure that this will be revealed to the Christian, what the truth is, and, what to trust, what to believe. I don't think like he'd let us go in blindsided and have us fight against them without any hints to the, to give us a heads up. But that's the more extreme you get. But realistically, I think it's my first choice. I think it's a big lie. I think the lie in itself is the demon, is the demonic.
So where do you think the lie is? At what point? Do you think it's like someone at NASA that did a psyop to produce these memos that then they ensured got leaked? Or do you think it's a lie?
It's the narrative.
What's that, sorry?
It's the narrative, all right? And so like, even if everything they're saying is true, or most of what they're...
What I'm getting at is there is a certain point where if it's false, like where's the break point? Is it the scientific data? Is it like the instrument data? If so, is it the instruments that's lying to us, or a person giving us false information from the instruments? Is it the NASA thing, or is it it's interesting. We're using this as an example actually of a thought exercise of, okay, well, where would these systems break down if you're going to deceive, right?
Yeah, I think it's the interpretation of the data. For example, someone taking a piece of fringe data, it's like, so there's a story today says someone says that that the comet it's actually nothing like a real comet. You'll get facts like that, and maybe that's actually happening. But again, they kind of infer and imply that there's something alien going on. So it's very underhanded and disingenuous.
There is a possibility that this is about, if it is indeed an interstellar object, that there could be a natural explanation. There could be elements or something at play that we don't commonly use or interact with.
Random comet coming through. That's the most boring.
There's all kinds of things. I would just say that, and there's even reasons why, an object might change velocity apart from any kind of alien influence, right? So for example, what I was thinking is, well, what if there's some sort of material in there that that changes its characteristics with the proximity of the sun, the heat, the pressure, whatever. And then that was the reason that the velocity. I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. I'm just saying that it fascinates me because, for all we know, this is all just a ploy to just get more money into the physics departments
or into NASA. Yeah, and again, that's
right?
That's also. Listen, you know what? That is such a bigger point than I even think you realize, because they. This is my biggest beef with NASA, because I think it's just a black hole for money. You know.
Certainly everybody who's ever tried to visit the place would agree with you. My goodness, you see the cost of the tickets for a publicly funded place. It's nuts. Like, you know, when no one would begrudge them for selling a $200 parking spot or something, but they, like, if someone had any family of size, you're $600-700 into it. You know, sell a parking spot for $200.
Yeah, and with all that money, you'd think they'd be able to, I don't know, keep all of their instruments and readings and data from the moon landing and their Apollo missions.
That is a weird one. That is a weird one.
Very, very weird. You know,
I wanted to tape All in the Family. Let's tape over the original movie.
Yeah. Which would be the only reason that I would allow such a, you know, if it's for All in the Family, you know, okay, cool. All right. I can get behind that. You know, but NASA, I don't trust. They always love to like just assume answers. I mean, again, sometimes it even comes down to like I've seen them do stories on, there's a planet that is in the Goldilocks zone that is, 500 light years away and could be in the habitable zone, and they have such and such gases pouring out. How do you know that from looking at a pixel? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're interpreting some data, sure, but guess what? There's nothing definitive in there. I'm sorry. It's just, at this point you lost me. But I think it's all about the narratives. They're creating a story out of something. Now, and really quick, a few years back, around 2011-ish, there was a similar situation that happened. There was a comet headed towards Earth called Elenin. Do you remember this?
No.
The Elenin comet, all right? And in YouTube, there was a movement, people saying, guys, this comet is going to hit Earth. Sorry, all right? Your best bet is to move to the Ozarks. And there were channels trying to get people to go to the Ozarks and give people money to come in these underground bunkers, and all this stuff. Is a giant scam. And I remember it very well because we were fascinated by it. We didn't believe it, just to be clear.
Yeah.
But we were fascinated by it.
And went down this
rabbit hole. But people did. People did. So this is history repeating itself.
As I recap it, so your favorite theory is that it's some sort of taking advantage of a situation to make a narrative to fundraise. Am I representing you correctly?
Not just a fundraise. I also think there's definitely something more sinister at play, which is like aspects of control, and especially if we go hardcore into Project Bluebeam, where they're at least getting us scared of that. This is about getting us, just to bring it back to what Reagan used to say all the time. If only there was an alien threat that could unite us to fight against them. This is what it all comes down to.
Right. So again, as I understand it, you think it's a natural phenomenon that is being basically hijacked for control and or fundraising purposes.
Control and or fundraising. Yeah. Why not both?
And my position, and I want the remaining audience to weigh in on this. My position is, I think that it's a natural phenomenon that has some sort of peculiar characteristics from its materials, that if it changes velocity or whatever, it's because of its internal structure under the heat and pressure of the sun is doing weird things. And
sure,
and it's valuable scientifically because it's doing weird things. And therefore science always goes nuts when its predictions no longer work. Right. So I think it's just a natural phenomenon, and it's just fun. It's a fun story. I don't think we got to worry about little green men. And I want to hear everybody else's theory on it if you followed it.
Yeah. All right. So Bishop Higgins
I think
says,
he's agreeing with you for your manipulation. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. And he also says the scientist carbon-14 versus carbon-12 argument proves that. If this has to do with carbon dating, which if it doesn't, either or, carbon dating has been proven. I'm boring. I'm the stuffing out of Father Mikkel. I'm so sorry.
No.
But
I'm just past my bedtime. Kind of.
No, I know. Same
the
here.
joke
Same
about
here.
that is I don't really sleep most of the time, but when I sleep, I sleep. I got about 4
This
hours.
3 Eye Atlas definitely woke me up some. But yeah, no, this the carbon dating thing is 100% true. I don't believe in carbon dating anymore. They used to teach that like it was its own gospel until they'll find a shoe print in the rock and say somehow it's 150 million years old. Like, okay, all right, I don't think you know what you're talking about. Sorry. And Joshua says, I'm comfortable saying I don't know. I'm so glad you're still with us, Joshua. I bet this is you probably have fun with this one. I'm comfortable saying I don't know. It will be interesting to see what comes of it. Well, we're gonna find out in a week. Supposed to hit us in Halloween.
Yeah, if they pull some little
Halloween.
green man, I just warn you, it's not going to play out like the coincidences of all the crazy stuff going on in the world, and then this just happening. I would say that's definitely not true. It'd be like a variant of blue beam. Yeah,
that's right. Now, Father Haygood, this is the last comment. He's as a historian, and if you even try to translate archaeological data through a historical lens, archaeologists freak out. God forbid you push back on the established.
Yeah, absolutely.
Narrative.
So maybe Bishop Haygood probably knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, but I remember reading an article, and it wasn't meant to be like conspiracy theory or anything like that. It was just somebody was asking. They were saying, they did some digs in Central America and Northern South America, and they discovered something that looked very much like an Egyptian hieroglyph. And so the guy posited that, well, maybe Egyptians were seafaring and we just didn't realize. Maybe they were an older civilization that seafared and some of our history's wrong. Everybody and their dog dumped on these guys. Like, you're a liar, you're stupid, you're whatever. And it's like, dude, like he's throwing out a theory out there. What's wrong with us
theory?
What's wrong with us saying, okay, well, what would we look for to corroborate or refute this? Like, what's wrong with that? Why is there this big freak out, right? And it's very funny. It's like some of you have watched the 70s era Planet of the Apes, and the big reveal. I won't ruin the movie for you.
You won't spoil it.
There's a big reveal there. That's kind of like what I see happening here is that people are so scared of the truth. Like there's there's this big hidden city in Turkey that's supposed to predate all of civilization that we were. What's it called, Felix? Something like Göbekli Tepe or something. I don't know.
Oh, Göbekli Tepe.
There you go. So, I mean, there's just stuff that are historical weird things, right? And I wish people would default to curiosity more than, like look at Einstein. Einstein worked in the patent office before he wrote the general theory. Was it general or special he wrote? I think he wrote special theory first. But anyway, you fact check me if I'm wrong. But when he wrote his first theory of relativity, he worked in the patent office. And I always used to think it was because he just wasn't an established physicist or whatever, and that he, was doing something to make ends meet. And then I later find out, no, it was a very deliberate choice because he knew that if he studied under academia in the traditional way, that they would suppress his work. And I thought, because it was just counter the narrative of the day. So I see a number of scientists, again, when I look at some of this fringe science, I don't immediately dismiss them as shysters. I don't run after, oh, look, they've discovered X, Y, Z. That they may or may not have, but I always, I give them the benefit of the doubt. There's a character named Ashton Forbes, and he's into some weird stuff. And, he makes an interesting case. He's a little crazy, but no more crazy than you and I, Felix. So where's the curiosity is what I say. And then, okay, if you're going to oppose the guy's idea, then just tell us not just why you disagree now. Okay. What would prove or refute it? Tell me that. And then rig up an experiment that'll do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Right? And you know what? And again, to Father Haygood's point, like again, the flood story has been force fed to us that is just a myth, and this just really gets me upset, Father. This really gets me upset because again, I grew up as a child believing believing the Bible, and then being convinced in my teenage years that, oh, I was just believing fairy tales and just these passed down myths, is such a disservice. And like, I hope people answer for that. And God forgive me, but I think there needs to be some accountability for that.
There's a lot of stuff in the Bible that's pretty neat, certain biblical archaeology, whatever, that like I remember in my day in the seminary, Felix, they said, the story in John where the fellow's healed in the pool of the four porticos.
Yeah.
And it actually happened the year I think it was my first or second year in the seminary. And one of the scripture scholars was saying, yeah, Gospel of John, he didn't like it. Synoptic Gospels, the first three, he thinks that, that John's just a theological reflection. You don't have to listen to it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like rolling my eyes like, dude, like, why are you teaching this Bible if you don't even believe in it? But anyway, it was so great. It was so, I want to use the word delicious. It was so amazing that archaeologists discovered the pool with the four porticos. And it was like, okay, so this biblical story in John was corroborated the very 3 weeks from the time this guy said it was crap. It was just kind of neat that every once in a while our side wins with something like that.
Well, but you know what? If I can even push back on that, it's every time. It's every time something from the Bible that has been in dispute, or oh, well, I don't know. There's always some sort of finding to our argument, you know what I mean, that supports the creation story or supports the biblical text. It's right. Every time, in historical, archaeological, scientific, like a lot of these, when you get to creation, when you get to evolution and things like that, we're now getting into theories. Okay. And again, people get really mad when you point out that evolution is a theory and not a scientific law. Okay.
Well, I mean, and again, that's another rabbit hole for us. But there's all kinds of problems with a pile of scientific theories, and that doesn't mean, I mean, it is kind of funny. Like, it's funny. I had one guy say, "Well, you don't understand what the word theory means in science. It means it's established fact." No, it means it's a theory.
No, it's not.
It
means it's a theory.
That scientists deliberately use that term because in the old days, pre-COVID, they believe that new data will challenge the old model, right? And then, unfortunately, the systems that we use to support and our scientists very often reward them for holding to narrative versus, explore new vistas.
On tenure, right? Like all such stuff that has nothing to do with the actual facts of the matter and like the reputation of the person and stuff. So Father Haygood wants to open a private school that teaches creation science. I am so about it, Father. We need to push back, and we need to get Christian children to be taught this stuff like it's real, like, God forbid, like we actually believe this stuff.
I mean, it's one of these things, because I started, I think I shared this with you guys before. Like, I started in physics in my university just a year. But I started, and the thing is that, so I say that because I'm not anti-science, I'm very pro-science. But the thing is that people don't realize how important this issue that Bishop Haygood mentions, because if there's no Adam and Eve, then there's no reason for our Lord to be on that cross. Right? Yes. So people want to say, well, I believe in Darwin, but I believe in Jesus. But there's a problem, right? And there's on YouTube, you can look it up, Cardinal Pell debating Dawkins. And Dawkins got poor Cardinal Pell, whom I admire in many respects, but Cardinal Pell lost that day. And it's so funny seeing people, oh, Cardinal Pell owned Dawkins. No, actually,
he did not.
Poor Pell. Pell, you know what it is? Pell was smart enough to win, but he didn't do his homework, and he presumed he could just slap this Dawkins around. And Dawkins read the popes, and Pell didn't. Simple as.
Yeah.
So you got to know your enemy, and a good lesson, if you ever debate with somebody, you got to know all their stuff too, like the back of your hand.
Steelman them. Yeah, you better steelman that argument.
And poor Pell, he walked right into it. And the long and the short of it was, Pell said, well, Adam and Eve are just allegories. And Dawkins smiles at him and says, explain original sin.
Right.
Boom.
Right.
I mean, it's like Dawkins, a 14-year-old with catechism could win the argument. You know why? You might say, well, how could a 14-year-old traditional Catholic kid beat Dawkins? Easy. You argue to the neutral. You're not arguing to convince Dawkins. You're arguing to show that your position, given certain assumptions, is reasonable. That's what you argue to. And we cannot be beaten on that. But the minute you start demythologizing or desupernaturalizing the Christian story, the seculars are going to eat your lunch every day. And they're going to ask a very valid question. Do you actually believe in any of this stuff?
Yeah, right. But and again, this is what we're being taught, and we're being set up for this type of failure. So this is just more like a cause, than a symptom, right? The symptom is being taught this crap, these lies, and then we take it out in the world like, well, to try to justify our love for God. I was like, well, how can we justify a love for God that might just be a figment of our imagination and just be a metaphor for the greater good of, I mean, look, like it's going to lead so many people away from the faith, or it has already. And again,
that's why
I need to take a chill pill.
I'm always a little concerned I'm going to be quoted out of context in this. Like I want the tent to be big to include the people that have a true quest for the real, true, and good that might not understand God as we do, but they're on the path, right? And I'm not saying that I want to leave them there. I want them to come on the path or decide for a fact that we're not the path, right? But often it's because people don't wrestle with these things with any kind of seriousness. And I just push back against some Christians who want to dismiss everybody who disagrees with them. No, there's two types of disagreement. It's kind of like Jordan Peterson says, there's untruths and then there's anti-truths. Now you can deal with somebody who holds an untruth. You can't really help somebody who embraces an anti-truth. And again, as beyond the scope of today, but it's just like there are certain kinds of disagreements that people can be a work in progress. And there's certain types of disagreements. You're wasting each other's time, even being friends. Like we don't have to hate one another, but it's like, why would I spend my time with somebody who, believes that everybody has their own truth? Well, there's nothing I can do with that. There's no point of us even discussing, Yeah,
what no, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And this is definitely above my pay grade, but just to be clear, I'm not saying that because you believe in evolution, you're not a Christian, or, like I'm not saying that.
No, but it is unfair to make the challenge. It's that we all have our square circles, but if you believe in macroevolution, I'm not talking about microevolution. If you believe in macroevolution and you consider yourself a Christian, you've got some problems. There's some theological problems, and there's some historical problems. There's some anthropological problems, and you got a bit of a dog's breakfast. And I met someone that was like this. He was a seminarian. He was the only fideist I ever met. A fideism is a type of heresy that separates faith from reason. And he was honest about it. And he was a great guy. And he was a chemistry. He's like a master's of science in chemistry. And he just said, listen, I'm a Catholic when I'm at mass, and I'm a scientist at work. And when I'm a scientist, those two worlds don't mix, and I don't believe they're reconcilable. So, think about that even from a mental health perspective, right? That's just not healthy, man. You got to pick one or the other, or come to learn how chemistry is at the service of God. But
it kind of ruined my life, and again, this is me speaking personally, and again, not to put responsibility on the errors that I made and the sins that I made, but it kind of ruined my life. I came up as a kid believing this stuff and then being convinced otherwise, which caused like a ginormous rebellion. And and I know it wasn't just me,
right?
But it's this huge rebellion. I felt lied to. I felt like, if this isn't true, it's like I might as well just go and have good experiences, because I don't know, because the ride is only so long. Right.
Live and drink and be merry, for tomorrow we may die.
Oh, Lord. It's just thinking about it. Really, it does. It's very frustrating, because I think it's worse now. So I can, I do feel the pendulum swinging back, but at least in the public school and everything, it's worse. It's worse for these kids.
Yeah, it'll get worse before it gets better for sure. Well, let's whip through the final comments and then call her a night then, Felix.
It's Father Haig. Yeah, I know. Thank you for putting up with me on this.
He normally goes to bed early. I'm the guy that's dragging tonight.
I know. Right? So Father Haig says Darwin said on his deathbed that he was in doubt on his theory of evolution and the origin of species. That's correct.
It wouldn't surprise me, but of course he invested his whole life into it, so you can understand why he might hold to it till.
Did he hold that? Did he have a conversion on his deathbed or before his death? I'm like, okay. Because I've heard like the theory that his theory on evolution was kind of a philosophical one, anti-God argument that he was going through at the time. I don't know how true that is.
Heard, and this may or may not be true, but I have heard that he was not convinced that macroevolution may ever be. That he knew evolution existed, what they call microevolutions, like the Labrador retriever getting webbed feet. But there's not a lot of evidence that like a Labrador doesn't turn into a whale, right? Like, I mean, I'm being silly, but you know what I mean? There's certain things that can adapt. If you had children that lived in a cave system, 3 or 4 generations, my suspicion is that their eyes would adapt to lower light and would find sunlight painful. That's microevolution. That's not changing species. That's changing attributes that adapt to an environment.
Right. But and again, they'll tell you that to believe in the flood is far-fetched. But when they tell you about the evolution of the whale, it was actually like this bear-like creature that somehow evolved its feet into fins into the water because it liked to. Look, this stuff is ridiculous. Okay.
Well, from the bones, we have no idea what skin covered them either, right? So there's a lot of this depictions is just, it's all made up. So
like if you were to show, if you were to show someone,
just admit it, right? It's fine to say this is our conception.
I've heard stories where they would show like ostrich bones, like laid out for like, scientists, and they'll be like, oh, this must have been some dinosaur or whatever, and it's like, buddy. That's like some weird brontosaurus hybrid.
We're going to rearrange ostrich bones and see if we can fool a paleontologist.
Yeah. All right. Let me fly through these. All right. I'm sorry. Right. So Father Hagen said, let's get together and chat soon. Please talk to him, Father. Anything I can do, let me know. I have an idea. Please let me know. Creation science should be taught side by side with traditional science, but realizing that one benefits the other and vice versa. We need a school of Alexandria in the 21st century.
Yeah, it helps us not to drink each other's our own bathwater, right? Like this is the thing. There's some Christians are scared of challenge. Like don't be scared. Like truth needs no lie to defend it. So it's not like we shouldn't teach these other things. It's just that we've got to teach our own clearly as well, right?
100%.
Let people sort it
out. So Father Haygood also said it causes cognitive dissonance. Yes. Yeah, it breaks brains. Yeah. It breaks brains, especially for those who believe as young, when they're young.
Yep, absolutely.
And my favorite 3 words.
He often is.
Oh, bless you, I wish. Father Haygood, last comment, says, let's do a show on creation science and how fossils prove creation, not macro evolution. I am so down.
Yep.
I am so down. Fun. I believe that in my core as well, by the way. We
should do that.
Yeah, totally. And I'll shut up now. I'm so sorry.
No. It's fun. We went a little later. Oh my goodness, we went really late tonight.
Almost 3, yeah. Hey, you're welcome, guys. That's for yesterday. We kept them hanging yesterday. We gave them an extra hour.
We have some people that still stayed. My goodness, I figured you guys would be. That's why I did the prayer an hour ago. I figured, okay, we'll let all you good loyal people go home. That's all right.
Hit like if you haven't already, folks. It helps us.
And leave a when it signs off, when it comes, leave a comment on the regular thing if you would, because it helps the algorithm even more than a subscription is if you leave a comment. Even like good show or you guys are turkeys. See, I got the turkey in there.
Yeah. That's right.
It's Jeepers. Even if it's something that you don't like tell us, hey, I didn't agree with you here. You're not hurting our feelings at all. And you're actually helping us by leaving a comment of some form. So a like and a comment is what I've been encouraging. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And we did run a little late, and some of you are watching it replay. So again, I hope you didn't mind 3 hours. But anyway, God bless you all. We already said our closing prayer. So Felix, run the crazy cat.
All right. Good night, everybody.